What's up, guys? Doublelift and Regi breaking out the boxing gloves. We got some drama to go over. Free agency started today as we are recording this, probably like, I don't know, 6 hours ago or something like that. Lots of stuff to go over for North America. Obviously, we'll cover the quick stuff with Europe and I guess LCK and LPL as well. There is a lot to talk about. Also, Act 2 of Arcane came out this weekend. JNT and I like that very much. We're going to go over that as well. This is episode 66 of the Clown Fiesta podcast with Blue Jay and JNT 250. So, JNT, let's start with the drama. I don't think we're doing this to pick sides or anything like that, but it is interesting when you have a CEO and one of the biggest star players from a region all of a sudden going at it in the middle of the offseason. So it's just weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I liked your little breaking out the boxing gloves line there.
Yeah,
That was a good line.
thank you.
Yeah, but I don't know. It feels like when you said picking sides, it feels like the majority of people are on Doublelift's side here. For the people
It
who
does.
for the people who don't really know what we're talking about, towards the beginning of last week, basically, Doublelift and Regi were going back and forth on social media, with
Mhm.
regards to Doublelift's 2021 off season, where Doublelift basically claimed that he was kind of forced into retirement because TSM didn't want to play with him after some issues with the 2021 roster. And we've just heard from many people across current esports teams, previous esports teams, chiming in on the matter, previous TSM players and staff, and it's not really looking too good for Regi.
No, it definitely doesn't. And the thing is, so I'll get to why I'm not picking any sides yet. We'll get to that, I promise. But to start off, like there's a bunch of resurfacing videos from a long time ago that are coming out with Regi looking like a complete dick. And let's be honest, he is a complete dick from those videos. But to be fair, that is a long time ago. Where that doesn't make it any better. But that does mean what I'm saying is the worry for me is that stuff still happening. That's my problem with it because not that that excuses it if it happened back then, but people do change and you can come out as a different person now than you were 8 years ago. When obviously, like you have to remember that when joining like the League of Legends LCS community, if you will, like there was no proper way of doing things. It's all just a bunch of stupid, immature kids. And while I absolutely hate what I had to watch, those videos are hella they're hard to watch, man, aren't they? Like
Oh
I
yeah,
hate having to
the
watch
the
them.
diarist video especially was just like,
Oh my god, I hate that kind of toxicity. I really do. I also can acknowledge that people can change, and so that's why that's one of the reasons why I'm not taking any sides. Um but yeah, then you had like you were saying, there was a bunch of people that came to Reggie's defense, and Doublelift was basically saying, I have Doublelift's quote here. Uh, Doublelift said, reading people's anecdotes that Andy was nice to them and thus downplay the fact that he harassed and abused people at TSM as their boss is just so disgusting. No wonder people don't feel good about speaking up about their abusers. I actually 100% agree with Doublelift there that, like, just because he wasn't an asshole to you doesn't mean that what he did was okay. So I actually completely agree with what Doublelift is saying there. And then Woodbuck, one of the old coaches of TSM, coming out and saying, just catching up on all the Doublelift drama. Peter probably has the lowest opinion of me, but I will say that 6 years later, I still get irrationally upset about my time on TSM due to working with Andy. That was the most toxic environment I have ever been a part of. So basically, the reason why I bring that up is because it's not just Doublelift saying this. Um, which makes it look all the much more worse.
yeah, shout out to anybody who remembers that name because like that was quite a long time ago for a very minimal amount of time. And when I first read that on Twitter, I was like, wow, if this guy's piping up about the problems in TSM's culture or organizational structure, like there's a problem.
Yeah. Um, so, anyways, I'll get to why I don't have a side on this yet, and I don't even necessarily want to pick a side. My initial thoughts are investigate this. There's been talk about whether the league should or shouldn't investigate this. I don't see what world you don't investigate this because you have two people, and regardless of how long ago it was, you have two people saying that there's some abuse coming from one of the owners of these teams towards the players. They're saying that players are crying. What if this is still happening now? That doesn't mean it is happening right now, but what if? That's why I think you need to investigate, and then you need to figure out if it's still happening, something needs to be done. If it's no longer happening, then I think we can move on. But the other thing that you need to figure out is what actually did happen specifically, because depending on how bad some of these things are, it will dictate whether action should be taken and whatnot. And I just think that it's incredibly irresponsible if the league doesn't look into this. I think that it would break my heart to find out that someone like Spica, who everyone loves and is a star player, could potentially be being abused by his boss or CEO or whatever. Like that would just absolutely break my heart. And so, yeah, my quick take on it is investigate, figure out what happened, if it's still happening, and then go from there. That is my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I've always thought, but kind of like my opinions were sort of reaffirmed by a couple of former TSM players coming out and talking about this, is how, like, when things are going poorly in TSM, Regi always gets involved some way, somehow. And if people remember, like, way back in the day with, like, TSM Legends, like, I mean, I'm talking way back in the day, like, Season 4, Season 5, Season 6, like, it was a pretty, like, consistent thing where if the TSM roster was underperforming, Regi would basically turn into the head coach of the team. And, they would often quite talk about how, like, he was a very, like, aggressive, like, guy in terms of, like, wanting the best for his team, and sometimes therefore, like, maybe getting a bit loud, getting a bit boisterous. I don't think at the time people were talking about abuse or whatever, but it was definitely something that has been happening in TSM for quite a long time. And obviously that's also evident in a few of these videos that have come out in the past. But in my opinion, like, there's definitely something wrong with the way that TSM kind of runs their team. If the owner of the team is basically allowed to sort of assume some sort of control within
Mm-hmm.
the organizational structure of the team, because the main, like, video that I saw that was coming and kind of resurfacing when all this stuff was being talked about was when Acadian was talking about his time on TSM on, I think it was the Crackdown with Dom and Thorin, and was basically just saying how, like, Acadian kind of attributed his, like, stark drop off on TSM from this specific one time where Regi came in when the team wasn't doing so well that week in scrims and basically just shit all over Acadian, and, like, he lost his confidence and, like, lost his starting spot on TSM off of that. And I think that was in season 9 summer when they were doing, like, splitting time between Greg and Acadian. And I feel like that's just a perfect example of why this is a problem. Like, you have the owner, the guy who runs the team, coming into scrims, coming into practice, talking shit about a specific player, and then ruining that player's performance and experience on the team for the rest of the year. So it's just like the whole situation, like, all around is pretty disappointing, especially from, like, Regi's side. Like, I know you say you're not necessarily one to pick sides in here, but I'm definitely on the Doublelift side of things. Like, one, the number of times and consistency that this has been a problem, based off of the past. That's kind of why I'm more on Doublelift's side, and also just like how just like bad it is in general. Like, I don't know, just like
So
TSM's
let me
got a
be
lot of
clear.
problems.
Let me be clear that the reason why I'm not on any side is because I want there to be an investigation done first. I want there to be absolute proof that X, Y, Z was done before I form an opinion. Because what can happen, and what does happen a lot of the time, is that people will make their opinions based off accusations. I'm not that kind of guy. I want to make sure that something has happened before because it's very possible that he could be being misrepresented. Do I think that's likely? No, but it is possible. And so I'm benefit of the doubt kind of guy. I'm not one that's afraid to give my opinion on stuff or afraid to give my take. I just want to make sure that I have the info before I do that. And so that's why I'm not taking any sides on this. But I am absolutely worried for the players. And to hear that there's a chance that there might not be an investigation, that drives me up the freaking wall. You need absolutely, you need an investigation on this. Could like I know I said earlier, what if it's Speak? Forget if it's Speak. If it's anyone, no one deserves that. Like that is so messed up. So, anyways, I just think there should be an investigation. We should learn what happened, and then I guess the league should then make appropriate decisions as to how they want to move forward with whatever information they find. That's how it should be for me. And I also heard that like, oh, this is coming from Doublelift, who's a toxic player. I don't give a fuck who it's coming from. If there's multiple sources that is saying that there is abuse on a team, investigate it. I don't give a fuck. Like, what the hell? Anyways, it's just so crazy to me that I heard that there could be an investigation. What do you mean could be? Investigate it. Protect your
So
freaking players. The LCSPA should be going nuts with this. Like I want to hear what Darshan, the LCSPA guy, has to say about this because I'm sure he has something to say. I'm sure that they have to be looking into this, right?
Yeah,
Am
I
I
mean,
crazy?
he was on CLG and they're pretty fucked up work.
Yeah.
Speaking of
So
CLG, dude, is this like pushing the snowball further that TSM's becoming the new CLG or what?
So it no, okay, yes and no. Like if it had to take a direction for it to go towards a CLG like thing, this would be a start. But I still think that snowball needs to roll and roll and roll and roll. Do I need to remind you, JNT, that when they get to the LCS studio, TSM gets out of an Escalade while CLG gets out of
Hey,
a friggin'
maybe
stalker
not for
van?
long, dog. Well, this new
Yeah.
TSM is not looking so hot. Post
Well,
Bjergsen, post Doublelift.
the Escalade and the Blitz and the FTX money can go for quite a ways. I think that snowball's got some miles to go, but I suppose it would be a step in that direction. I still don't see it happening, but okay, J&T, if that ever happens, I'll give you all the props you want. If they somehow become the next CLG, so clip it and ship it
All I'm saying, dog,
because
is this situation's gonna be like an exponential graph. Like, sure, it might start up slow, but
yeah,
once it hits that curve, it's going.
you think it's a slippery slope, eh?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe I suppose. Um, How much do you think this hurts TSM in the long run?
Oh, I mean, like it definitely doesn't help them, so it
Oh,
just
it
has
certainly doesn't help them.
it just has to hurt them. Like there's
I
no.
think it hurts them a lot,
Oh, for
honestly.
sure. And I mean,
Uh,
I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago. Like I don't think TSM's image per se has to do like I guess sorry, their public image has nothing to do with their performance and therefore the level of talent that joins the team or wants to play for TSM. The whole reason why people wanted to play for TSM is because they're the best team and they have the best players. And that is no longer the
and money.
case. Yeah, but I mean that's no longer the case. Like TSM
Yeah,
is
now you
not the
have
most.
TL and C9 that both have money, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the TSM is not the most desirable org to play for in terms of, oh, I can get this much money for playing for them. They're no longer one of the top teams in the LCS in terms of performance, and they no longer have these like blue chip players like Bjergsen, like a Doublelift. I mean, the
Yeah.
only person I would say that you'd want to play with on that roster is Spica. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so TSM's on the
Yeah.
decline, but hopefully for just the relevance of the LCS, they don't go to CLG, even though I do think it's probably going to happen
Yeah.
in due
That
time.
that's the biggest loser in this for me is the hardcore TSM fans because I think about if I'm a hardcore TSM fan, this breaks my heart to know that this has been happening in the org. Now some TSM fans knew about this already. Like those videos of Regi are not new
Oh
videos,
yeah, I mean,
but but some didn't though. Some didn't, and I just think if I'm a diehard, okay, let me use this as an example. Okay, so obviously my name is Blue Jay. Uh, an example of like where like I could totally stop cheering for the Blue Jays is if I lose respect for that org. A perfect example in baseball for those that don't know, the Houston Astros just got caught with a huge cheating scandal in the last
bunch
couple
of
of years.
fuckers.
And I know that that's not the same as abuse, but like those are both things that would make me want to not cheer for a team. Whether I found out the Blue Jays were hard cheaters, or if I found out that they were abusing their players, that would really make me not want to cheer for that team anymore. And it would feel so bad knowing that I've sunk I don't even know how many hours into watching the Blue Jays play. It would break my heart, and I feel like that's probably similar for some TSM fans that find out about this stuff. I'm sure it probably sucks. Um,
Hmm.
and maybe there's a lot of TSM fans that don't have a team to cheer for anymore, which could ultimately just hurt the league altogether as well.
Well,
But anyway,
let's move right
yeah.
along. As you know, everyone knows, free agency, official free agency started today, November the 15th. So
Yes, it did.
things are being confirmed, although a lot of these roster moves have been rumored and sort of speculated for some time. We are just going to quickly go through each of the rosters. Some we've already known, some, players and names are being dropped kind of for the first time yesterday and today. And we have some spicy rosters, I would say.
Yeah, we definitely do. However, not that much has been announced, right?
Yeah,
Like
nothing like officially
the
announced.
speculation is announced. The
Yeah.
speculation is out there. But as far as like today's the free agency day where things can actually sign, not that much. Not as many wolf bombs or bloop scoops,
Oh
if you
God.
will.
Oh God.
um, but definitely, yeah, those names are. The thing is, they're cheesy, but I don't mind them. Like, I think a dash of cheesy is okay. Just a little bit of cringe is all right in esports. But anyway, let's start with 100 Thieves. They decided to stand pat for the most part, but they're going to go with Tenacity to work with someday. And then also they added General Sniper and Mithy is joining as the head coach. J&T, thoughts?
Um, all good moves all around. I think Mithy joining as an assistant head coach is really, really good. That was a position he originally joined C9 for in the first place. And I think he's a great coach. I mean, this is 3 years in a row now where he's bounced around coaching staffs when I think for the last 3 years he's been a really great coach on that staffs. And I'm again surprised that he's on a different team, going from Fnatic to C9 to 100T. But all
Yeah, I
three of
didn't
those
really.
teams, I think, are gonna be very welcoming to his knowledge and his presence, and that's great for
Yeah,
them.
that one surprised me, not because I thought like, oh, I can't believe Mithy's leaving, going to another team. That one just surprised me because I didn't really even think about that possibility of him going to 100 Thieves specifically. But I
Yeah.
think I did talk with you either on this show or off the show, I don't know, about whether Cloud9 would keep their coaching staff, and it looks like not all of it, at least.
Hmm.
Um, the biggest thing for me though is General Sniper, because so many I mean, the whole North American scene's been talking about this guy for at least a year now, just waiting for him to be able to be signed. Cloud9 tried to sign him last year, and then I guess he wasn't old enough. I guess he's old enough now.
I
I don't
think for
know.
amateur, yeah. I mean, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, saying how like we kind of hoped this guy would go pro or try to become a pro eventually, because while being a streamer is probably a much more lucrative career in the short term for right now where he's at, I think he's one of the players who probably has the most potential out
How
of.
old is he now? 15,
He's
16?
16 now.
Okay.
Um, so yeah,
What um what was I gonna say?
I don't know.
I lost my train of thought. Anyways, as far as the someday tenacity thing, how long do you think it's gonna go until one of them takes the spot? That because that one's really weird. I don't think anyone goes into the off season going, "Yeah, the plan is to split time." This makes me think that they're not really sure what to do. That's what I get from when I look at this.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird because I think in the long term, it's obviously going to be tenacity. I think
That's what I think too.
maximum next year, even though they have Someday under contract for 2022 and 2023. Um, I think tenacity at the very latest is going to get in there next year. It's just a matter of time if 100 Thieves is underperforming or if Sunday is underperforming, he's going to be the first guy in.
Yeah, I think they want to go with tenacity, but I just think they're not confident that he is LCS ready. So I think they're probably going to start off with trying him to see where he's at.
Well,
And
and
then if it doesn't work out, be like, oh, we were just having him split time with Someday anyways. Oh, whatever. Like, Someday did not have the greatest year, as you and I have talked about many times, though he did look better towards the end of the
he
year.
did,
We
yes.
still acknowledge that he is not at the Someday level that we've seen him in the LCS over the past, I don't know how many years now, 4 or 5 years. It's been quite some time. We've noticed a little bit of a drop off from Someday, and so that's why I think they're like, Tenacity's looking pretty good. Let's give him a shot, and I think that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't heard any word about like the lock-in tournaments or whatever, but wouldn't be surprised at all if Tenacity was playing games in that.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, that would be my guess. Because in the lock-in tournament, do you really need to see more out of Someday? You've like
He's a
probably
known
not.
quantity.
Right, right. So, anyways, interesting lineup. This team won Summer Split. Need I remind people they went 3-3 at Worlds. I know not everyone was happy with the Worlds performance. I thought they actually looked okay, and so I think that they're looking pretty good. What can I say? You've got an extra top laner to add, which is like he might be better. We'll see how that works. You got a new coach that we think we have a lot of confidence from, Mithy, and then you signed, excuse me, probably the most. Uh, uh, I don't know what's the word. The best prospect North America has ever had. The most anticipated prospect is maybe the best way to put that.
Yeah.
Because people have been talking about him forever in General Sniper. So
Hmm.
yeah, things looking good for 100 Thieves. Not a lot of moves that they had to make. Next, C9.
Yeah, and C9 probably the biggest surprise of the
Yeah,
offseason so far, I would say, in terms of how their roster is looking. For the people who don't know, yesterday it was announced. Well, not I guess not announced, but the rumors and rumors from a majority of sources were saying that C9's roster is going to be Summit. And if you don't know who Summit is, he's the current top laner for Live Sandbox over in the LCK. Blabber Jungle, Fudge role swapping to mid lane, Sven bottom, with Isles, their academy support, going up to LCS.
yeah. So and then just to add on that So that's what Travis announced last night, and then Fion on Fire said, "I am only confirming C9's top side. I have sources telling me that the predicted bot lane of Sven and Isles isn't completely locked in as of now." And so that's something that isn't 100% by the sounds of things. So we'll see what changes there. But if you're going, if for the sake of this conversation, let's presume it is the Summit, Blabber, Fudge, Sven, and Isles, like you just mentioned. Um, I think we could have gone a million years without me guessing this lineup.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's pretty surprising. Just, I mean, let's ignore the whole like Summit signing right now because a lot of people probably don't know who he is. But you could argue that Sven was one of Cloud9's worst performers in summer of
Mm-hmm.
basically MSI towards the end of 2021. You could argue that he was one of, if not the worst player on that team, and he's one of the players who's staying. And again, promoting Isles from Academy to LCS, I think is another pretty surprising move considering, yes, Cloud9 had a lot of success with bringing in Fudge and bringing in a lot of OC players on C9 specifically. But still, like losing a player like Vulcan, while he definitely didn't have a very solid end to the year, I don't want to say struggled at Worlds, but didn't really look very solid. Didn't look too
I'd say
solid.
struggled. I'd say struggle. I think he struggled pretty much since MSI. Vulcan was not all that impressive to me, but not many players were on Cloud9, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would put him more on the not quite on the Perks Sven level. Those
Yeah.
guys were in a those guys were the worst performing players, but still a surprise nonetheless to see Isles come up from Academy to LCS. I mean, the majority of the Cloud9 Academy to LCS promotions have looked good in the past, so it's hard to doubt history here. But
You know what
still,
my
I
thoughts
think.
on this are? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
I thought you were done.
I was gonna segue to the role swap, but what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, as far as the bot lane and Sven and Vulcan, my guess what happened there is I think C9 was looking to probably get rid of both. I honestly think, but I don't think they were able to get any money for Sven, so decided, whatever, let's resign. And I
Maybe,
think Vulcan they were probably able to get some cash for. That
maybe.
is my guess as to what happened there, because I don't think either one of them was particularly amazing this year, and I think they were like, let's get some money for Vulcan because we know C9 has a history of getting some cash for their players. And
Mhm.
so I don't think this offseason was any different there.
Yeah, but obviously, the big news is Fudge role swapping from top lane to mid lane. Fudge's, just LCS story I think has been very, very interesting. He came out in Lock-in 2021 and looked absolutely horrible and kind of didn't look all that great in the first, 8 to 10 games of the regular season, and then towards the end of the regular season and postseason really turned it on, smashed Alfari in 2 consecutive series and playoffs, was Cloud9's best player by far at MSI in 2021, was looking really good against top laners like Khan and Zhao, who rolls into summer 2021 and is their best player again by far for the entire split, pretty much the only player who was consistently good throughout that entire split. Didn't look as amazing in playoffs, but was again once was very great at Worlds. And just for him to role swap is just pretty crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And the one thing that I'll say to, I guess you as a C9 fan, but to the other C9 fans is that uh, what you said about Fudge getting so much better is the reason why I think C9 fans can feel a little bit better about this because he looked so bad when he started last year, and he was one of the quickest players to get better that we've ever seen in the LCS. Like you said, he was C9's best performer last year, and so I always worry about a role swap. I think that's normal to worry about that kind of thing. But if there's someone that proved that they can learn quick, it's Fudge. So I think that should put Cloud9 fans a little bit more at ease, I would say.
Mhm. And I do think like in terms of the role swap, I mean, I think I've not been as worried about role swaps in recent memories as opposed to previous because like I'm trying to think of the majority of the role swaps that we've seen nowadays have pretty much worked out fairly well. Like the notable ones are Perks from mid to ADC, Bwipo from top to jungle, Huhi from mid to support. There's been a lot of good
Mhm.
players that have made role
There has.
swaps,
Yeah.
and sure, it might have taken some time for a few of these players, but Fudge, from what we've seen, has the skill set, I think, to be a very strong player. And then, coming into the 2022 season, like if you just look at the mid pool on your screen right now, like it's hard to like he's probably better than at like 3 or 4 of these players potentially just based off of like mechanical skill. So
Yeah, it's really interesting, this lineup, and then obviously they decided to stick with Blabber. I think I said to you during MSI, I was like, Blabber's gone, and I continued that the whole time. I was like, Blabber's fucking gone. Nope, he's sticking around, baby.
yeah, I
So
didn't think he was going anywhere.
I think if they had a better option, they would have taken it. I think that they probably got outbid for some people,
Maybe,
being Santorans and Inspireds and whatnot.
maybe.
That is my guess. I don't think Blabber was their number one choice. I think it was, well, we're not winning the bidding war, so let's not spend our brains out and let's just stick with what we got in the jungle role specifically. That's my guess. That's pure speculation, just to be clear.
Yeah. And
Um,
lastly, we'll talk about Summit really quick because I don't think either of us really know a whole lot about him.
I've
What I
watched a little bit, but
Yeah,
I
I
remember he
mean,
played a Renekton game a couple of times. That's like literally the extent of my Summit knowledge. So
yeah.
fill me in a little bit, JNT.
I mean, what I will say is just from the numerous like Reddit comments and Twitter threads that I was reading, specifically I think LS was talking about how great a player Summit is individually, like in his lane. He basically ranked him as like a top 3 top laner in the LCK behind Keen and I don't know if he said Khan or somebody else. But he basically thinks that he's like one of the better top laners in the LCK. And that, his skill set is just, it's going to work out very well in the LCS. He's not like a tank utility guy. Like he is a very aggressive player, plays a lot of carries, whatever, whatever. I think we'll just have to see. I think there's not a whole lot of knowledge, especially from the LCS
Hmm.
sort of scene about this guy, and
Yeah.
it feels like we are probably going to see a lot of overreactions based off of the lock-in tournament and maybe the first couple of games about this player. Like if he just goes out and shits the bed, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, like this basically the same thing that happened with Fudge last year." But he could honestly just come in and dominate. Like who really knows at this point?
Real quick though, I want your thoughts because there's this 50% chance, as per Travis Gafford, that Max Waldo, LS, and Vagar V2 are coaches. By the way, I just want to be clear that Travis might be memeing about that. I don't know. I can't get a read
Yeah,
here.
it looked like a meme, but I'm not sure.
It did look like a meme, right? But
Yeah,
what I want to ask you is, good thing or bad thing? Do you want it or do you not want
I don't know.
it? Like, I want it.
who is the head coach though? Like it has to be LS, but like it'd be kind of surprising to like for C9 to. I mean, it just feels like a risk. I don't know. It feels like an
It
unnecessary risk.
it seems like a big risk for LS.
Oh,
Think about
yeah, for sure.
like he's got this huge following and he know like like he's always right, you know what I mean? Like he'll hold on to his opinions very firmly. And so like I just that's interesting to see in a coaching dynamic. And I know he's had coaching experience in the past. I think he coached Gravity way back
He
in
did, yeah.
whatever.
Season 5.
Anyway, yeah, so but that would be interesting to see, but I would also be interesting like what if C9 what if he was coaching them and C9 sucked? What would that do for LS that could have just hung out, kept doing his thing, clean up doing his streams? Like it just that's where I see the unnecessary risk is like does LS really want to do this? Cuz like doesn't he want to be on if he's going to coach, doesn't he want to coach a team that could win worlds, not Cloud9? No offense.
Yeah, and I mean
That
also
was
like dating back to the T1 coaching stuff, was it either last year or last summer? From what he kind of explained about that situation was that he wasn't necessarily going to be joining as like a head coach. It was more just as kind of like a person on the coaching staff to
hmm.
like work with, I think, players specifically, not to run the whole show there. So it would be surprising in that group of LS, Max Waldo, and Vegar V2, like who the head coach would actually be, because I think you would have to assume that it would default to LS. But like you said, like it's kind of a risk because like that'll be his reputation, his name on the line.
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting for the LCS though, because LS is he's a really popular figure. I think it would be great. I would love to see it anyways. But anyways, yep, C9 lost the off season. Let's bring those memes back again.
Hmm.
um, uh, yeah. Anyways, next up is CLG.
Yeah.
Jenkins contracts Palafox, Luger, and Poom. And then also they signed ThinkCard as their head coach and Croissant as their strategic coach. J&T, thoughts?
Um, yeah, the weird thing about this is for whatever reason, when Contracts like has a good season or looks good, he joins the worst team in LCS. He had a really good rookie season on Cloud9, joined Golden Guardians and looked like complete dog shit. Had a really good half a season on EG where he looked like clearly the better jungler than Svenskeren,
Yeah, for
though,
sure.
although he didn't get a ton of playing time
Right.
come LCS playoffs. And now he's joining CLG, who's the worst team in the league. And yeah, I've always liked Contracts. I think he's a really good player, but I do think that he does need a good roster around him for him to really succeed. He does I think he works really well off of, strong laners and then him being able to formulate his own game plan in terms of focusing on minimizing the enemy jungler's impact as opposed to helping out his other lanes. And I think when he gets put in a situation where he has to probably be running to all 3 lanes to try to help them out, which is most likely what he's going to have to do on the CLG roster when he has very weak players in comparison to the rest of the league, and specifically Palafox, Luger, and Poom, he's probably going to struggle. And like I think their top side is decent in Jenkins and Contracts. I think if you put that
Yeah.
top side with a different team with like an average or strong mid to bot lane, they could be solid and they could look really well on this team. I just think their mid and bot lane is just really going to weigh this team down.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just come clean here and say that I have a very weak opinion on this team because I don't watch a lot of Academy. What I will say is I thought Jenkins looked good when he had to sub in for Alfari this year. I think that is a good signing, but very small sample size. I think contracts look good, but again, small sample size. Like so, what you're saying about the top lane, I'm right there with you. I'm not very confident in it though.
Hmm.
Palafox I thought looked really, really weak on FlyQuest. And Palafox is a good example to look at that even if you're having success in academy, that doesn't mean that you're going to have success at the pro
Mm.
level. We saw that with Palafox this year, who struggled most of the year, honestly.
Yeah, he had like
And
a
then
few
Luke,
good one-off games, but other than that, he was pretty much getting destroyed.
and then Poom we saw last year with the whole Poo Gang
Oh
thing, that
god,
meme,
that
and
was
he
so
looked
funny.
bad. But again, not a lot of games, and he was a brand new player, and so again, not a strong opinion here. And I hear Luger looks good. That's all I hear. Um, what I wonder is like if Jenkins and Contract are going to convince me that this lineup isn't that bad, and then I'm
Yeah.
going to do this thing again like I did last year, where I'm like CLG is like 6th or 7th place team, and then they're just 10th again. Like I don't know where to put this team. I guess we'll probably try to do that next week or whatever once the rosters are absolutely finalized.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I got
I
baited last spring, summer when like they did start to look at the end of the year and they were like, oh, I think
yeah,
both of us put them as like fifth, sixth, and then they were just like absolutely horrible. So I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid at all. They're 10th
the only
place.
Kool-Aid that I'm going to drink for now, here's the Kool-Aid that I'm going to drink for now, is that I think this lineup has to be better than what they just had, which is not a hot take
Maybe.
because of how bad CLG was. I don't think that's a super hot take. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to watch the CLG roster. But I will remind people, for those that are longtime listeners, I don't have to be a CLG fan next year. I'm
Yeah.
done with that. So
Your contract as a CLG fan's
my
expired.
contract as a CLG fan is over. And so if this team sucks, I mean, I guess I kind of already hard flamed them anyways, didn't I? Even as the
Don't worry. I'm
CLG
saving
fan.
my heart. I'm saving the flame for 2022.
I'm gonna enjoy watching this team, whether they're good or bad. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Dignitas. We got Fake
Yeah,
God, River, Blue. So Fake God top, River jungle, Blue mid, Neo 80 carry, and Biofrost is the question mark as the support. That's pretty uncertain though as of this time.
yeah. Pretty interesting import slots just because you have River, who I think is a great player, by the way. I like
Mm-hmm.
it, and then you have Blue, who is a subpar mid laner in the
LEC.
LEC. I was trying to say I don't know why I said LCK. I was about to say LEC. Um, and it just like makes me confused why they were able to get a player of River's caliber
Mm-hmm.
with one
Yeah.
import slot and then choose to get Blue with their other one. Because like if you could have afforded a player like River, like why not go after any of the other PSG like players for an import slot or any of the other like decent mid laners that are available? Like not even like the top tier ones, like the ones we'll get into, like the NISQYs and the Jensens, like just a
So
decent one. Like
they also have a new coach that's being, I don't know if this is like reported with high certainty. I don't remember the Enetron guy. That was high certainty, right?
yeah, I looked him up really quick just before this. He was on the second place Turkish team. So he's got to be decent, I guess, because
So my thoughts is that maybe this Enetron guy has high expectate or a high opinion of Blue. Maybe there's something that he sees, because I would have to imagine that the head coach has a serious um, influence on the team that he's going to be coaching about like who he thinks is good and whatnot. So maybe it's his call. That's something that's pure speculation, but it is interesting to your point to see River and Blue being used as the two import slots, because Blue did not have a lot of success, whereas River looked pretty damn good. Um,
hmm
yeah, I get this is one of those rosters again that I would have never guessed in a million years.
yeah, like I think
But it's
River's a great
interesting.
player.
It's interesting. Uh, I don't think Fake God had the greatest year. I think he had an okay start in spring, but
No, he looked
did
like
not
poo poo.
he did not look good as the year went on. That's for sure. And then even Neo looked good in spring. Well, Dignitas in general looked good in spring. I'll remind people, like they were actually like,
Dude,
a decent
Aframu
team.
whipped out the magic with the rookie support, and now
Yeah.
Aframu's gone, so Neo's destined to fail like Johnson.
I am worried about the Biofrost thing. Now that one's a little less certain if that's happening, but the reason why I'm worried about Biofrost because he took a year off. So and taking a year off isn't the whole thing for me, but when you looked pretty bad the year before taking a year off, I think that's a little bit worse for me. Like I'm a little bit more nervous that not only did you start to look worse, but then you also took a break for a whole year. And I understand the argument could easily be made that like, look, he's still a good player. He just needed a break. I get that. I'm just not all that confident that Biofrost is going to come back and just pog out. I'm not counting on it.
All right,
Anyway,
next up, we got Evil Geniuses, who didn't necessarily get the super team, but I think they got a pretty solid roster. And
this team is interesting, man. Sorry,
Impact
go
top
ahead.
lane, Inspired jungle, Jojo Pune mid lane, Danny ADC, and Vulcan going over from Cloud9 as support.
This is to me the most exciting team for next year. Ahead of TL, ahead of C9, ahead of I guess we don't know what TSM's looking like yet, but
Surprising.
this to me is like this is a huge gamble that EG is taking, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad gamble. This could be the right play. So there was talks about JENSEN and Doublelift possibly playing on a team together, and obviously EG could have been one of those teams, right? I think you take Danny over Doublelift regardless of the team. I think I would take Danny for the same reasons that I just mentioned about Biofrost. Doublelift did not look good his last year. Um, his spring split with TL, which was when the spring doesn't matter, spring split doesn't matter, that whole thing. And then when he went to TSM, I still thought TSM's bot lane was the weakest part of that team, and I didn't think it was really close either. So I am worried that Doublelift isn't the same. And then Doublelift also took a year off, like I just mentioned. That's a lot of question marks for me. I'd rather go with Danny, who showed a little bit of promise. Like that, I'd rather go with the younger, less expensive question mark than the older veteran that's going to cost you a shit ton of money. And then you might not even have your mid laner pan out, right?
hmm
And then like you could kind of argue that that's a waste of cash. What I think you do here, first of all, I can't believe they got inspired to play for a lineup with two young players like that. That surprises me. But you got
Money talks,
inspired.
dog.
Yes, it does. You got inspired. You got Europe's either best or one of best junglers. And now you get to test out your two young rookie talents, which I'm guessing they're probably going to do this for spring. And if one of them doesn't pan out, they will look to replace. Now, I don't think there's a lot of options at 80 carry, but with Jojo Pyun, if he doesn't work out, you've got NISQY still available, JENSEN still available. May I remind people that Jizuke was on this team? Haven't heard shit about Jizuke. So I don't think they're too much in a rush to find a mid laner when there's so many on the market still. And that's why I think we ended up with the roster that we have here, which is such a weird, but very interesting and exciting way to go about the offseason for EG.
Yeah, and I do think Inspired is kind of like the perfect jungler to bring into your team, one who we know is a
Definitely.
really good player that will also just make it a lot easier for players like Jojo Pune and Danny just to have a good time in LCS. When you're going to have a really good
Hmm.
jungler that's going to shit on people, like, makes it easy for the mid laner and the bot laner's job.
Hmm.
And I guess the last thing to talk about with this lineup is Vulcan. Um, from what we've heard recently, he seems to be maybe a question mark with this roster. I think it's also partially related to when we were talking about Cloud9 that their bot lane might not potentially be locked. I
Yeah.
don't know if it was Travis or Fiona on Fire said that like Vulcan from C9 to EG may not happen. So
I think it was Fion. Now I'm not 100% on that, but
I
the
don't
reason why I
remember.
think it was the reason why I'm saying I think it would be Fion is because Travis had locked in the Cloud9 roster last night, right, where he said that Isles would be starting and blah blah blah. And it's like you said, it sounds like that's not done yet. That whole
Mhm.
I don't know transaction or whatever. But yeah. Anyways, that's why I think it might be Fion, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, if we were to just jump back to C9 really quick, I do think that with this whole fudge role swap thing, it probably makes more sense to keep Vulcan and have a little bit more consistency in your roster than thrusting in another rookie who has the chance to fail, although history says he won't, or that's the only reason why I'm not as nervous as I think I should be. Um, but I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, it's just funny because if I thought I was going to keep one player of the C9 bot lane who didn't look very good, I would have kept Vulcan over Sven, and for right now, they're keeping Sven. But again, I wouldn't be surprised at all if C9 did run back the same bot lane.
So a little bit more speculation here. The reason why I think C9 can get money for Vulcan is because EG needs an import slot. If Jojo Pion doesn't work
That's
out,
true.
you need that import slot for either maybe
Yeah.
NISQY. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe you just
No,
get
that's
JENSEN.
I didn't think about that. That's
But
true.
but maybe you need Jizuke or NISQY, right? Or I mean, maybe someone else as well. But
Yeah.
because if JENSEN, let's say TSM goes after JENSEN, shit, right? So that's why I think C9 is getting rid of Vulcan or supposedly getting rid of Vulcan is because I think EG is probably like shit. We can't go with Ignar anymore because I guess Ignar maybe didn't get a green card or whatever. Because I actually, if it were me, even though I think Ignar did look worse this year than he did the year before, I would go Ignar over Vulcan after what we just saw this past year.
Yeah.
Which
And I
I
mean,
think that's probably a hot take for a lot of people, but me, I think, yeah, I thought Ignar was better.
yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily completely agree. Well, I mean, I do kind of agree that both players didn't look very good, but my reason for thinking that I would rather Ignar over Vulcan is just for consistency's sake. That you should run the same bot lane back as opposed to getting,
Yeah.
in my opinion, a side grade from Ignar to Vulcan. Like, it's a side grade.
Yeah, but anyways, so that to me, I'm so excited to see that lineup because it could absolutely flop. But what if it pops off? You know, what if we have a team with two really young rookie talents that are supposed to be very good? Time will tell. Like that could be so hype, man. So, anyways, I'm really excited for EG. I guess I'm an EG fan. I hope that this roster does well, and I mean, I won't be disappointed if JENSEN has to step in. I said it last week. I'll say it a million times more. JENSEN should be on a team, man, and he's still one of North America's best performers at international tournaments. So, the biggest fear for me is that if Danny doesn't pan out, because if Danny doesn't pan out, I don't know who the good options are.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he kind of has the tactical effect where he has a really
Yeah,
insane, joins a team during the middle of the year, looks insane, and has, a really bad sophomore slump.
yeah.
But only time will tell. Next up, FlyQuest. They're running back the same sort of. Oh,
Your boy Jose Dioto's sticking around.
dude, I knew it. I said this. I knew it.
What happened?
Well, I just knew that he was gonna stay.
Oh, I sorry. I didn't. You cut out, so I didn't. I just heard something. I knew. Anyways, yeah, he ends up sticking around. Last week we were kind of convinced he was gone. Nope. Now we think he's sticking around. Although that still could change. Now, again, just another reminder. None of this is final. But yeah. Anyways, Kumo, Jose Dioto, Takui, Johnson, Aframu.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, so I don't want to go too long on this. I'm excited about the Johnson and Aframu bot lane again. They were great with Dignitas last year. Oops, so as I hit my microphone. So that's what I'm most excited for with this team. And then I guess I mentioned the Jakui thing from the LFL. I think a player coming from that league is exciting. I'm not excited about Kumo.
Yeah,
That's
he
about it.
wasn't too great. I just wonder if the other options just didn't pan out. I would assume that's what it is because Kuma was basically like the last piece of the puzzle that we heard from
Mhm.
FlyQuest. Like that only happened like this week where it was like, oh, well they're keeping Kumo, so kind of just
Like
makes
what
me
happened
think,
with Hanser, right? Like Hanser was rumored to maybe be looking at
yeah, or
FlyQuest.
Jenkins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, rip.
I would assume that like the other options didn't like work out, and they probably just decided to stick with Kumo as opposed to maybe getting another um academy top laner. What I will say,
Hmm.
this came out very, very recently, and I've been talking about this guy for quite a long time. Dignitas released Lorlo, who's been playing for their academy team for the last like year and a half now.
Go
FlyQuest should
get him.
sign Lorlo. Like, just
Yeah.
that. I'm telling you, that
Give him
guy,
another
like,
shot, right?
he's
Like,
LCS
what's it
level,
hurt?
dog. He's LCS level. Like, sure,
Yeah.
he may not be a top 5 top laner in the LCS, but if you're a bad team and you're struggling in a specific role, that role being top lane, get Lorlo, man.
I agree. Golden Guardians next. The guy Licorice Pride Stalker, Ablaze Olive, sorry, Licorice Top, Pride Stalker Jungle, Ablaze Olive mid, Lost 80 carry, and Ole support is looking like the roster, the likely roster. Um, the standout for me is Ole's back. That guy's a
Hmm.
kooky guy.
Yeah, he's become a kooky guy ever since he
Yeah.
left LCS, basically.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting personality, and I'm happy that
He's
he's
funny.
back
I
in the
like him.
LCS. Yeah, exactly. I'm happy that he's back in the LCS. I don't know what to think about his performance because I don't think he was that great when he left the LCS, but he
Hmm.
did have success on TL when he was playing with Doublelift. I know Doublelift didn't like playing with him all that much, but there has been times that we've seen good things out of Ole, so I'm gonna be patient and see what happens there. You and I mentioned Licorice and Ablaze Olive. Not a big surprise seeing them back. The Lost one is interesting because he goes from TSM to Golden Guardian. Pretty big drop, I would
Yeah, I
say.
mean, I wouldn't say it's not like Golden Guardians of the past where they were like clearly the worst team. Because I think
Hmm.
Golden Guardians is a decent team now. However, I'm just kind of surprised that they decided to go with Lost instead of sticking with Stixay. Like, again, I think this is kind of a side grade. In terms of
Yeah.
Stixay versus Lost, I think the average person might be like, wow, like Stixay, like dude, Stixay was not bad at all last year, and he was playing with a
Yeah,
pretty terrible support for
I agree.
the entirety of 2021. And again, not to say that I think Lost is a bad player, but it's just like if it doesn't work out, I'll be like, told you so. Haha.
Okay. I don't know anything about Pride Stalker, do you?
I don't even know what region he plays for or played
Europe,
for.
I'm pretty sure. I
Oh,
think
is he
he's
like a?
ERL.
Okay, well, hey,
Oh boy,
they
now
usually have decent
make sure I'm not
players.
wrong about that because I
I
could
don't
be
know,
wrong.
dog.
Dog.
I have no clue, dog. Yeah, but I'm glad that they have Licorice and Blazolov still. I said that before, like both of them were pretty great towards the end of 2021. Good
Hmm.
that Blazolv's sticking around.
Next.
It's just I feel like this roster is going to be very Pride Stalker dependent. Like if
Yeah.
he's good, they may be good. If he's bad, they're probably going to be bad.
Okay, let's go next. Immortals.
Yeah, we
Uh,
got Revenge
Go ahead.
top, Xerxes jungle, Power of Evil, new mid laner, Wild Turtle returning to Immortals, and Destiny potentially staying as support, kind of a question mark at this point. But
Yeah,
the
that
big
one's still a
news
toss up.
was today. I don't even maybe it was like late last night, but today, Power of Evil and Wild Turtle joining.
Yeah. So both of these guys going back to Immortals, in a
Oh yeah,
way,
I guess.
because
Yeah, Optic. Okay.
Power of Evil was there with Optic, and
Yeah,
then
yeah. I forgot. Yeah.
Wild Turkey was with Immortals. Um, that
Back in
year
the
they were
heyday.
pretty good, right? With
Yeah,
like
season
Hooney
6.
and yeah,
He
Hooney
was.
Rainover days, right?
He was season
Yeah.
6, and I don't know if he played in season 7 summer on Immortals because he went back to TSM, but I don't remember where he played in season 7 summer, but back when they were good.
And PoE is an interesting one because we've actually seen him just hard carry some of these lower tier teams in the past, right? He looked really good on FlyQuest, although I wouldn't say hard carry there. But when it came to CLG in 2019, he actually looked really good and hard carried that team. And then with Optic, I think before that, he was honestly on a team that wasn't so great. I remember there were some memes about carrying these animals or something like. Do you remember that? Do you
I
remember
think
any
I
of
do, but I
that?
don't remember what it had any relation to. But I do
I
remember
remember
that
people
line.
not knowing if he was joking around or if he was being serious. Anyways, it's interesting because then we saw him go to TSM this year, and while I would still say he was like good, I wouldn't say he was like stand out good. And so maybe he's more of a comfort zone when he's on one of these lower tier teams. I don't know, but it is interesting to see him go from TSM. TSM not really know what they want to do with their mid lane yet, and just say, you can go and explore your options. We know what that really means. That means like, all
Hmm.
right, you're through. You're gone.
Yeah, and I mean,
So maybe there's a redemption arc for PoE here on IMT.
yeah, I mean, after like the whole Bjergsen thing, like I was kind of like, I was like, oh, maybe PoE just rejoins because Bjergsen declined or something like that.
Yeah.
But Yeah, like I think PoE joining is actually pretty good for Immortals. Like both Wild Turtle and PoE are like pretty decent upgrades over the previous, players in Insanity and Raze. Unfortunately, I'm a
Race.
big
Yep.
Insanity fan. He got the juice, but he ran out of juice at the end of
He ran out of
2021.
juice.
He had a
Yeah.
really good spring and a really, really poor summer. Kind of unfortunate to see Insanity lose his spot. But I don't think he deserved to keep it after the season that he had.
Yeah.
We'll probably see him back in Academy, I would assume. He's a solid player. And then, comparing Wild Turtle to Race, Wild Turtle's kind of like the better version of Race, where sure, yeah, he does have these like crazy plays where he does like some random thing like he's flashing into the enemy team or he's doing some int in lane, but like Turtle's still a very strong player. Like one of the few bright spots for CLG in 2021 was Wild Turtle when he did like carry a few games and actually look really solid. One game that really comes to mind is I think it was like it was CLG versus Immortals where Raze had like a huge lead in lane and then Turtle like was actually like reverse stomping them down like 1k gold in lane and like almost led the comeback for CLG to beat Immortals, but Immortals ended up winning the game. But like Raze was like inting his lead completely. So I actually think this Immortals roster is going to be decent. I think wouldn't be surprised at all to see this team kind of get back to like the sixth, seventh kind of area that they were in spring split
Hmm.
and sort of before that. Um, but yeah, because they didn't have that great of a summer.
It's interesting. What's interesting to me is that Wild Turtle manages to stay around because he hasn't really been a top tier 80 carry for quite some time, but he manages to keep his spot in the LCS. Whereas we have these guys like Broxa dropping off, Stixay's now no longer with the team. Obviously, you got like the Meteor Sneaky and Doublelift, they're no longer on team. But Wild Turkey, that guy, that guy sticks around. If people don't, I have this habit of saying Wild Turkey. If people don't know what that's from when like they when the broadcast went remote for the first time, they had a lot of issues and they wrote Wild Turkey under his name. I
Yeah,
just realized that people might not know what the hell I'm saying when I'm saying Wild Turkey.
yeah, it was from like you said when the
That's
LCS
way back.
broadcast first went
Yeah,
remote. There was
it's
like
been a little bit over a year now, right?
their first broadcast back. They had a bunch of player names incorrect on the broadcast. I think the standout one for like us was Wild Turkey, but they also had Wiggly at the time who had name changed to Griffin, and they had him as his old name
Santornin.
Wiggly. Yeah, they had Santornin where they added an extra N in there. I know that there was
Anyways,
one other, but like it was just a funny moment.
yeah, anyways, yeah, I just wanted to explain because people are probably like, "What the hell is he talking about?" But anyway, yeah, I mean, we've talked many times about how I think Xerxes is actually still a really good jungler. I think he's still like underrated. I think he's a lot better than what you would think you would get out of a lower tier team. And so I'm with you in saying that this team can actually challenge games against teams in the upper five because that's kind of how the LCS is being qualified now. Is that you got the top five and the bottom five. You have these two different leagues. I think this is one where the bottom part of the league can take games off the top part with this roster like Immortals.
hmm Um,
Next is TL.
yeah,
We talked about TL.
they got the super team.
Oh, I forgot to mention one quick thing about Immortals. There's a rumor that maybe Zix is going to take over coaching, which leads into this one because it looks like TL is the front runner for the bidding war over Gyoto. I guess, so Immortals coach from this past year looks like TL and TSM were after him. It looks like TL bought or won that bidding war, and so maybe Gyoto's going over there. That's still not confirmed yet, but obviously then Immortals needs a coach, and it looks like they're looking at Zix for now, which is a longtime LCS coach. Everyone knows who he is, so yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
Uh,
with Team Liquid, it's pretty much their race to lose, just
yeah,
simply with the level of skill individually that these players have. I think the only teams, I guess that I could say that can match up, I think individually are probably like I don't even know if I would include C9 or 100 Thieves in this discussion. Like I think it's
I would say
maybe only
100 Thieves
EG.
only for now.
I would say EG maybe. Like if Jojo
I
Pune
okay,
turns
so
out.
so sure. So I guess I should include EG, but like I mentioned before with EG, like that is a big question mark. Whereas like I have a lot more confidence in 100 Thieves coming out and looking good. So while I should say that EG could, I think the only likely one is 100 Thieves to be able to take
Yeah,
games off TL. And I'm not that convinced with C9 or
well,
TSM. We don't really know what's going on yet. EG's still way too up in the air.
I was gonna say, like, as much of a fanboy of Xenon that I am, like, there is no chance in hell I can even try to argue that their bot lane of Han Sama and Core JJ that Sven and Isles have a chance of like standing. Like, I think that you could make an argument for the top side of the map with Summit, Blabber, and Fudge if the Fudge roll swap pans out, but like, dude, their bot lane would get hard rolled.
We have quite a few TL fans that listen to us. I notice, or at least the ones that interact with us on Twitter and stuff, because I'll read people's bios and says that they're TL
Yeah,
fans.
yeah.
I am speaking to you guys, TL fans, that I see quite often on Twitter. This is your year to get under JNT's skin. Now is
Hey,
the
dude.
time to pounce.
Oh no, honestly though, I would say the
That's
opposite. I would say the opposite because TL is the expected #1, and if anything else happens, you'll be
Yeah,
hearing
yeah.
from me.
So that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, but don't be surprised if he dishes it back. But
Hey dog,
uh,
if you guys aren't winning both splits and performing well at MSI and Worlds, like, hey,
I think it'll be fun if you and some TL fans have at it over
dude,
Twitter.
I'm
I
excited
would
for
sit
this
there with
TL
some
lineup.
popcorn.
Dude,
I
I
would enjoy
like this
that.
whole TL roster. Like, I like all of these
So do I.
players. Like, I've
So
always
do I.
liked Whippo. I've always liked Bjergsen. I've always liked Core JJ. I mean, I've never been like a huge Hansama fan per se, but I've recognized that he is a really great player.
Yeah.
And Santorin's just like been a consistent, solid jungler for pretty much his entire career. So
Yeah, but anyways, there's not much to talk about because we talked about this roster lineup last week, and we're probably going to talk more about them next week as well. Next week probably going to be our last episode, by the way, but that's a conversation for later. Um, TSM, their projected lineup right now is Huni, Spica, Fate is a question mark. Not a lot of confidence in that one, and then Tactical and Ignar. Tactical more confidence than the Ignar Life, and now maybe Mickey's been thrown into the mix as of tonight. It seems like Mickey is the new front runner there.
I hope for his sake he doesn't go to TSM.
Pardon me?
I said I hope for his sake he doesn't go to TSM.
Why JNT?
Because I like Mickey X and don't want him to going to fucking shit
I
tier
knew
TSM.
I knew the answer, but I knew your answer, but yeah.
And for people
Uh
who don't know who Fate is, he's the mid laner for Live Sandbox and LCK
yeah.
team. Same team that Summit is coming from. Again, he's just a player. Like, obviously, you can see like there's not a lot of confidence in terms of the rumors about him. So it's pretty hard to even say whether or not he's going to be on this team. But I mean, Live Sandbox is at least in the recent, like the last 2 years, they've been a top 6 team in the LCK. So that's got to be worth something. It's been known that Huni and Spica is going to be like the building blocks around this team going forward, and the rest of the roster is still a question mark. So it
Yeah,
just feels like with TSM, like we got to play the waiting game here. We're probably
we
not
do.
going to. It feels like they're going to be the last team to lock in their roster.
Yeah. And what obviously it's not a hot take that the Cloud9 fan doesn't want TSM to go after Mickey when you're also a Mickey fan as well, if I'm not mistaken. So
I mean,
big hot take. Me, I don't really care if he goes to TSM. I think sure. I feel again, like I mentioned at the start of the show, I kind of feel bad for the TSM fans, seeing as like they might be like, oh shit, do I even want to cheer for this team if I find out that the Regi stuff is true and if this and if that, blah blah blah. TSM fans, they need a win right now. So if they get Mickey, I'll be happy for them. Although honestly, Ignar and Life are also good supports as well. So if they're looking at those options as well, like I think TSM has three pretty good options that they're looking at in the support role. So
yeah, I guess one other thing just to quickly throw out there with the TSM stuff is I don't know if this is like a rumor that's still relevant, but apparently they were trying to go after a lot of LPL players to fill up.
I was hoping you'd say Chovy. That'd be
Oh,
that's the one that
no, no,
everyone
no.
keeps memeing. Okay,
Please,
sorry.
God,
Go
no.
ahead.
But apparently they want to do some potentially, like, again, I don't know if this is relevant currently or if this was something that they were looking at earlier on in the off season, but to do some sort of Chinese speaking team, because
Hmm.
for people who don't know, Spica is Chinese and speaks, I guess it's
Mandarin.
Mandarin, sorry, he speaks Mandarin but
Yeah.
is Chinese.
Hmm.
So wouldn't be surprising to see some LPL players slot into this roster if, the tactical stuff doesn't end up happening, and obviously, support and mid laner seem to be up in the air.
Yeah. Okay, so we will definitely talk more about these teams once they get solidified, guys. So like I said, that will be next week's episode. But for now, J&T, who won the offseason? Who lost the offseason? And what is the biggest surprise out of all these lineups?
I mean, it's got to be Team Liquid for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's their year to lose, and
So they obviously
it's
won the
it's
offseason.
solely on them. Like, it is their year to lose. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I
I
don't want to
agree.
hear any excuse. With you, like, look
Okay,
at this roster.
so if there's no debate there. They won the offseason. Who lost the offseason? Because I mean, I got an idea, but I want to know your thoughts on who lost the offseason.
I mean, I don't know. Like,
I do. Dude,
uh,
TSM, you
oh, I
just
mean, I
lost
guess, yeah,
Bjergsen.
that's true.
Hello. You lost Bjergsen. Now
Okay,
that doesn't mean that they can't redeem themselves in the coming weeks or whatever days, whatever it is. But I think anytime you lose your longtime franchise face player who's 1v9 for you since joining your team, that's a loss. And I think that even though I don't think they're going the way of CLG, you mentioned earlier, like this is the start. I think the Bjergsen thing is the biggest thing that could look in that direction, if that makes sense.
yeah. I guess
Um,
I didn't necessarily consider them right away just because we don't really know their roster. But yes, losing
yeah.
Bjergsen and losing the face of your whole organization is bad. I mean, my other thing was just going to be CLG, mainly because like I don't think their roster got any better or worse per se based off of their players individually, but like in a world where this team is the exact copy of the previous team, like you went from a bunch of very big name players to a bunch of no names. So like if you're gonna be a bad
But
team,
here,
you
hold
might as well
on.
be a bad team with veterans and like a
Right.
name for
Whoa.
yourself.
Really?
I mean, yeah, like
I'll take the opposite of that. Here's what I'll say.
because no one's gonna care about your team. Like even though CLG was like complete dog
Okay.
shit, like people cared. Like oh, like there was like there was some level of empathy with players like Pobelter, with players like Broxa, with players like Wild Turtle, with players like Smoothie, and maybe Finn for those people who care about Finn. I didn't per se. But when you have this team, like who is there to care about on this team? Like you know what I mean?
So that's a fair argument. I will say there's still a lot of contracts fans out there, though.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
would say I still think there's a lot of Poom optimists, we'll call them. But I will still say that CLG won the offseason more than they lost the offseason because the
hmm.
main goals were to completely strip this fucking team
They got
and
Bud
get
Light
something just
aced the
absolutely
pentakill.
new. Yeah, yeah, the Bud Light Ace memes came back today on
That
Twitter.
was
That was
funny.
spot on. That was great. Yeah. But I think the goal should be a clean slate. And I think it was Azale. Like, I'm a big Azale fan. But I think it was him that was like, I'm surprised they didn't keep any players. Bro, Azale, you need to understand, buddy. This is like you need to scrap this team because you don't want to carry over any of that negativity from last year. You need to get rid of absolutely everyone, and it seems like they did that. They got a new head of esports or whatever. They got new coaching staff, all 5 new players. You don't want to carry over any of what was the most probably like one of the worst environments last year into this year. And so I think that was goal number 1 was even if like you thought Broxa was good enough to be on your team still, you're getting rid of Broxa not because he's the problem, but because he probably has this bad taste in his mouth of last year where he could be like, "Oh, you guys should have been here last year." Like you want to just completely get rid of that and start fresh. And so that's one thing that I think that you absolutely had to do. The other is you save a shit ton of money because they had to probably spend a lot more on last year's roster than this year. And
That's
so
for
those are
sure.
2 big wins for me.
Yeah, the
Yes, they could
only
still finish 10th, but that's not any worse than they were last year. They were still absolute trash last year. And so I think I see more positives than negatives here.
yeah, I think the only player you could argue that they could have or should have kept is Broxa. Probably because he was the only player that seemed to match up like individually on any level during the majority of the
Mm-hmm.
season, and like the dysfunction of CLG was not Brox's problem or fault whatsoever. Um, but I am happy for Broxa that he's out of that shit show. Um,
Yeah, me too. I miss Broxa though already. I still want him to be in LCS, but I mean, yeah.
and I guess if we're going biggest surprise, I mean, for me, I think it just has to be the C9 stuff with like
Mm-hmm.
the Fudge roll swap and them keeping one of their worst performing players. It's just like, again, like history shows
I
that
think
whenever,
C9's more.
like
Go ahead.
whenever they say that they lost the offseason, it turns out well. So I mean, I got no
Yeah,
clue, dude. Like
that is true.
it's just weird.
So the C9 is still the biggest one, and especially because it's C9. Like the one that will say is close behind is actually Dignitas,
Yeah,
but it's Dignitas, so people don't really care all that much.
it's true.
Let's be
If
honest.
it
That's
wasn't blue and like anybody else, I'd probably go with Dignitas because the river
yeah.
thing is super
The
interesting to
Dignitas one
me.
is still it's still shocking. It's just it's Dig, so people don't. It's not as flashy as Cloud9.
Yeah,
So
and I
that's
mean,
but yeah.
it makes me wonder if like River is leaving to join a team like Dignitas. Like, are there going to be other PSG players that end up anywhere else? Like,
Yeah,
cause
whatever happened to Doggo? Where is this guy?
Oh
Why
yeah,
haven't we signed him yet?
they should have gotten Mawan or Moan.
But anyways, we will definitely be talking more about power rankings or something of that sort next week.
Mhm.
Don't know what it is yet. We're gonna figure that out. But
I'll tell
we're
you
not
this
done
right
with all the NA
now.
stuff.
I'll give a spoiler to the power rankings. CLG is going to be 10th place.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say TL's gonna be 1.
Oh, I mean that could be the
Okay,
other one.
we
So
spoiled.
yeah,
Okay, we
1 and
spoiled
10,
the
1
extremes.
and 10 are decided. So it's
I don't know
the
if
middle that counts.
I might not put CLG 10th. I'll have to think about that one. But we'll get
Bruv,
to that next week. Don't bruv me. I want to think about it. Okay, so
bruv.
let's get into all the other. Let's go through the Europe stuff, the LCK stuff, the LPL stuff. Let's get on to that pretty quickly because we did take
Yeah.
quite a bit of time on the LCS stuff.
Yeah, I
Naturally.
mean, the two biggest things that I think we'll spend the most of our time talking about is obviously the big news is that REKKLES is going to be
Mm-hmm.
joining Caramine Corp in the LFL on a 2-year contract, and I don't think the move to Caramine Corp was surprising at all, but the 2-year contract is very surprising to me.
Yeah, like if anything, like you don't like this guy deserves a 1-year contract so he doesn't get stuck in contract prison again. There's got to be some clauses in there that he could get the fuck out
Yeah.
whenever he wants. There's no way you could be an LFL team, get REKKLES, and then also be like, and we got you for 2 years and you're not going anywhere. Like that's not gonna happen. I hope. I shouldn't get ahead of myself here. Anyways, that one is crazy. A world where REKKLES has to go to an LFL team is honestly that is
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I saw, like people talking about it on social media and stuff, was like, well, REKKLES' like big goal is to win worlds, and you can't win worlds in the LFL, and it's like, I didn't
that
see
is
it. I
true.
didn't see it like that because I would assume that like REKKLES was probably using Caramine Corp as a platform to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be shitting on all these kids, and like
Still got it.
when
Yeah.
summer comes around, if you're a team that's aspiring to get to Worlds, like go pick me up. But the fact that it's a 2-year contract like makes that a bit more of a question mark. But I do think there are probably some like stipulations in there that probably benefit REKKLES in terms of if he does get LEC offers come summer 2022, that hopefully it makes it a bit easier.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
with you. I think that he should be on an LEC team by the end of the year, but who the hell knows?
yeah, who knows at this
Who
point.
knows?
Next up, the other, again, this is like kind of a hard like rumor, like nothing really confirmed at all, but what is it called? The Bloop Bomb? Is that what they call them?
The bloop scoop.
Oh, the Bloop Scoop, my bad. They said on the free
The wolf
agency.
bomb.
Yeah, I forgot what it was. But the Bloop
The wolf
Scoop,
bomb is not new though. The wolf bomb started last year, where
yeah, I
what's
got
his
them
face would be on
confused.
his stream howling. There
Oh
would be
my
the
god.
howling, the wolf noise. I won't howl, JNT. I won't do that to you again. But there's that, and then the bloop scoop,
Yeah,
which I find just hilarious.
and this one was just so funny because Cadril was watching the free agency show when they
Yep,
dropped this rumor that he might join Vitality as a coach, and he was like live reacting to it. He looked pretty concerned, which makes me think like this
dude.
has got to be something that's in the works potentially.
So first of all, Cadril is just naturally hilarious with anything. Like that guy is great. So I think regardless of the reason why he reacted that way, I think no matter what his reaction would have been funny because he's Cadril. Like I think he's hilarious. But Mark Z brought something up tonight on Hotline League that I hadn't thought of. He brought up the point of like maybe the LEC talent isn't aware that he was looking to join a team, and so maybe they're like, "Oh shit, we were planning on using Cadril next year for the LEC, but he might be joining a team." So
Mm.
that was a possibility. Like we don't know if that's the case, but that was something that Mark Z brought up tonight. That I was like, true. That's something where they're like if you're like Dracos or Shocks or any of those guys, right? They're probably like, damn. So maybe he hadn't told them yet. Again, just
Maybe.
pure speculation, but a good point brought up by Mark, who obviously is on the LCS talent, so he would think of such a thing, right?
Maybe Cadril's gonna pull a jet.
Yeah, I don't want him to go to coaching though. I love Cadrill's content and I love him on the desk or when he's casting. Like,
Yeah, same.
no man, Vitality, I love you, but you need to
Yeah,
fuck off.
and similar to the LS thing, like it's his reputation on the line again, kind of thing. Like he's making bank probably as a content creator this last year.
Yeah. The thing is that's a little bit different for me though is that I want LS to coach a team because I think that'll be really controversial and will build up the LCS. Whereas like Cadrill's already part of the LEC broadcast anyway.
That's true.
Like, so I don't think like I think he already does that for the LEC. So I don't want Cadrill to go to a team. I want him to stick around, be hilarious, and do all that shit that he normally does.
All right.
But anyways, let's
Next
get through
up,
the rest of the Europe stuff. What's up?
speaking of some more Caramine Corp stuff, their top laner Cowboy Shard, who's a longtime LEC veteran, very good player. he chose to stay in the LFL as opposed to joining Fnatic because apparently Fnatic was trying to acquire him.
Yeah, that one was like, do they mean like the Fnatic, like the amateur team, or do they mean Fnatic the Fnatic? And like, I was like, oh, okay,
And the whole reason
sure.
why this is relevant in the first place is apparently Team BDS, the new LEC team who bought out Schalke's spot, they're buying out Adam from Fnatic. So Fnatic seems to
Yeah.
be blowing up a little bit.
Yeah, that is a little interesting. I don't have too many thoughts on it. They're also buying out Humanoid from Mad Lions though, so
Hmm.
not everything is bad for Fnatic,
Yeah,
but I am
it
curious
ain't
as to
all
what their
bad
top
news
lane's going to
bears.
look like. So yeah. Anyway, I don't have many thoughts on that.
Yep. And speaking of Mad Lions, their new mid laner is going to be RKR. No clue who that guy is.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know.
Next up,
I'm
we
not
got
going to make
some.
things up if I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go
we
next.
got some rogue stuff. Malrang, the sub jungler for Damwon Kia, is joining rogue, and also Comp is joining as their AD carry. So it looks like the rogue lineup's probably going to be Ottawamne, Malrang, Larson, Comp, and Trimby.
And then Finn is joining XL.
Dude,
Sir
why?
Finley Mergleton is getting his second shot.
Why?
Second shot, I guess a third shot. He was with Rogue then. Uh, yeah, I will admit I was a little bit like, why?
Well,
And
Kryze is like a decent player.
yeah, see, that's the thing though. Like, I was actually a fan of XL last year, and so even though I want Finn to have this comeback, I'm like, well, couldn't he have a comeback somewhere else? Because I liked XL, and I don't think Finn looked all that particularly good. I'm hoping this is
All
one of
that
those
good.
cases where like Finn just didn't work out in another region. Because when he was with Rogue, I will not say he was that great. He wasn't. He was probably like an average top laner, but he was not that bad, man.
Yeah,
He
no,
was
he
not that bad at
was
all.
one of the
So I'm
worst
hoping that he can
players.
bounce back. I think he's still hard grinding solo queue. You see posts about him.
I saw he
Um,
finished second in the on like EU solo queue when the
yeah, so
season
he
ended.
can't be pure disaster, but anyway.
Yeah.
Um, rip cries though.
Yeah, I think he's a solid player. Maybe he goes to Fnatic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lastly, Dejor, whoever the hell that is, again, he's joining Astralis as their new mid laner. There was just some
Don't know
random,
who he
like,
is.
I wouldn't even call it drama, but like there was this guy on Twitter who was like, I can name 20 mid laners that I'd rather have on my team than this guy. And
Oh, that was that guy.
yeah, because he said that about another player, which I don't remember who it was, but
I didn't know that that was with Dejor or Dejor or
yeah, but
whatever.
it was the same
That
guy
is the
who
most
did.
BM thing, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be him. Like I don't know who that
Anyway,
guy is, but I just saw it and it was like, yeah.
yeah. Anyways, don't know much about him, so have at her, Astralis. Have fun.
Okay,
Next.
we'll do some LPL LCK stuff real quick. LCK, big news that came out today. Canyon, Showmaker, and Barrel are free agents. The consensus
Mhm.
best player in the world is up for grabs.
Well, and maybe the second best.
Maybe.
Some people would still maybe point to Doinby, but although after this Worlds, a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
not
people are a
after
little
this
bit
Worlds.
cold on. A lot of people are pretty cold on Doinby, but Canyon was great as well. So, and obviously so was Barrel. Yeah. The thing is that I want to make sure. Like we don't know if they're signing somewhere else or if they could re-sign.
Yeah,
How's
well,
that working again?
they are free agents, so that doesn't mean that they're not that it doesn't eliminate
Okay.
the possibility of them playing with Damwon, but it is interesting when you have players of this caliber that Damwon didn't actively try to re-sign them. So it makes you think that they tried to re-sign them and, they didn't want to re-sign,
Yeah, they might
or
have interest to go
just
somewhere else.
the negotiations weren't exactly, solid at the time, and who knows? Like again, we don't know what's going to happen. They can still stay on Damwon if they choose to join up with a new contract. But for the time being, 3 out of the 5,
Dude,
top players are available.
I bet you there's so much money being thrown at Showmaker from the LPL specifically. I'm talking. I mean, LCK of course as well, but I bet you the LPL is probably throwing a lot of cash offers at Showmaker and Canyon and Barrel for that matter, and Chovy as well,
Yeah,
because Chovy's still on the table from what we hear, right?
Chovy and Deft are free agents.
Yeah.
They've not
So,
been re-signed or they've not been extended by a Hummel Life.
yeah.
So that's
Any thoughts on
interesting.
where you want Chovy to go or where you think he'll go? Any
Well,
thoughts or?
my prediction was that he was hopefully going to stay on Hanwha and then replace Faker next year after Faker wins Worlds, because he's got to win Worlds, and then Chovy's going to
Oh,
be the replacement for Faker.
gotcha. Okay.
But
Well,
I
speaking
don't
about
know.
T1 though. speaking about T1, Teddy's leaving as well, which
Hmm.
isn't that surprising because Gumayusi was playing. I mean, they were splitting games in like the regular season, but Gumayusi, did he play all of the World's games?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So,
And it's not like Teddy left because like he was struggling or whatever, because he wasn't really struggling per se. It just seems like T1 is moving forward with the young guns that they
yeah,
have, and owner
yeah,
Gumayushi, Carrier. I say Carrier like he's been around, but he's still a very young player. He's like 20 years
yeah.
old. And from what we've heard, he's looking at LCS opportunities potentially. So who
Hmm.
knows? TSM Teddy? Well,
Not another
maybe.
bang, I hope.
Oh God, no! Please no. Then
Uh,
we'll quickly go to some LPL stuff. Um, what I have. Okay, this was actually really interesting. There was a Reddit post that was on Reddit today being Monday, that has now been removed, but it read that LGD has sold their LPL spot for 22 million US dollars, which is like,
hmm.
whoa, that's a lot of money. But then
Yeah.
RNG, yes, RNG is looking to sell their spot for, wait for it, $94 million USD.
Why would that happen? Like, like, huh?
Like maybe like they're just looking to cash
RNG?
in, but like RNG is probably the biggest name in China in terms of League of Legends
I
ever.
thought they were the most popular team in China, so
They've been around
I don't
for
know.
they've been around since like season 2. Like they're the most prolific team, and so to see them potentially selling their spot is crazy.
Well, what's weird to me is like, okay, I know the LGD thing was removed, but like, if you're looking to buy an LPL slot, doesn't the slot that costs $22 million seem a lot more
Yeah,
attractive than
and
the one that
for
costs
sure. But that
94
also
million?
that also makes me
Hmm.
think like, I
They're
wonder.
selling the brand, maybe?
Like maybe they're selling the brand, or like maybe it's sort of within, like you might gain all their sponsors or whatever, because like RNG has some pretty big sponsors. Like their biggest one is like Mercedes Benz, but like I don't even know. Like,
But
but
if
dude,
you're getting the sponsors,
like
sorry, big yawn. If you were getting the sponsors, that means you would have to keep the RNG name. Anyways,
I
that
mean,
to me is
dude,
so
but
JNT.
94
This
million
smells like
dollars.
Fugazi to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey,
This smell
just saying, it was, take it for what it is, but like,
smells bad. It stinks. I don't
okay.
like it.
Last up, another name that's been thrown around, kind of sparsely over the last year. Uzi still
Who's
looks
that
like
guy?
who's that guy? Yeah, still looks like he wants to join a team, but apparently he said on stream recently that he can't because of his current contract as a content creator slash streamer. But he did mention that that contract expires at the end of December. He said, I think.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but again, part of the reason why this was like he said it was difficult for him is because he can't like go to tryouts for teams, because presumably tryouts are going to start when free agency starts. So if Uzi's going to return, it probably won't be until at least summer 2022, I would think, based off him saying he's unable to attend tryouts for spring. Um, Dude, just stay retired, Uzi. Like, you're good, bro.
Don't
Like,
ruin the legacy.
yeah, like, dude, like, what are you gonna join? Like a mid-tier LPL team, look like shit, not make worlds, retire again? Like, don't pull a Brett Favre, man. Like, come on.
Maybe he has different thoughts in mind. Maybe he thinks he still got it. Maybe he does still got it.
I thought he wanted to make a Wild Rift team or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard that. Yeah, I remember us talking about that. I don't freaking know anymore.
What happened there, dog?
Anyways, yeah.
Okay, well, that sort of wraps up our free agency talk, but there are some key players that are missing. I mean,
Oh, who might they be, J and T?
well, the two big obvious ones that we have talked about are NISQY, JENSEN, and Doublelift. Those are like the
Those are
three.
two big ones.
I realized I said two when I was about to go into a list, so yes,
What about four with REKKLES being on there?
he's on Karmine Corp. What do you mean?
Yeah, I suppose.
You have the old notes,
He's
bro.
not on an L. He's not on a. Well, I guess LFL is still pro, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
not on a. Anyways,
yeah.
continue.
But my apologies. The big three names are NISQY, JENSEN, and Doublelift, but there are some other pretty notable ones in there that don't have a team. Jizuke, Svenskeren, Broxa. We were talking about him, like where Broxa
Hmm.
at, and then two of the G2 boys still, Wonder and Mickey X, but Mickey X potentially the TSM thing. We'll have to see. I mean, these are some really, really big name players that are still up for grabs in free agency. It would be really surprising to see players like specifically NISQY and JENSEN, who just went to Worlds and looked really, really, really good towards the end of summer 2020, summer 2021. Specifically talking about NISQY here, like that guy was hard carrying Fnatic. JENSEN looked fantastic at Worlds. And then, I mean, players like Broxa, Svenskeren, Wonder, and Mickey X, while they didn't have the best of years, they're all still great players with great history.
Yeah, I think I might want to talk about this one next week or whenever we do our next episode because, again, some of these players could still sign. But if there's still a long list of players like this, I feel like it's something we definitely have to talk about next week or whenever, like I said, whenever our next episode is. But see, it is weird and definitely notable that there's that long of a list of like good players still available, and teams are supposedly finishing up their rosters without them. So that's the crazy stuff.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'll quickly cite in a tweet that Azale put out today, and I'll paraphrase here because
mhm.
it's exactly what I've been thinking recently when it comes to hearing all these big names not have a roster spot this late into free agency. I say late into free agency, it's only the start, but the rumors and whatnot. And the whole contract situation with a lot of these lengthy contracts with expensive buyouts, like we're sort of feeling the repercussions of that, where a lot of these
Yeah.
top teams are choosing to sign these players, and then within half a split, one split, they end up replacing them with a different player, and then they basically have to hand off these other top talents that they've paid top dollar to the bottom feeders of the league, or not even the bottom feeders, just the middle teams who aren't necessarily willing to spend that money if they don't think it's as valuable for them. So I completely 100% agree with Azale there that we are really feeling, the effects of these huge contracts and huge buyouts that have basically happened within the last 2 years. And you can just go back to the numbers that have been thrown around with the Perks signing, even the extension that JENSEN signed not too long ago, where he was making like 1.2 mil a year or something like that. But it's crazy to see some of these guys not get on teams, presumably because of their buyout situation with their contracts.
So one quick thing before we move on, I should have asked you this before, but do you know like how the waiver system works in like traditional sports? Could there not be something like that for the LCS where like players can be waived so they're not stuck in this contract prison where like other teams have the option of picking them up or whatever? Is that something that could be applied here? Or does that just make no sense for that
I
to
guess,
happen?
I mean, it could be, but then like the teams would presumably lose a lot of value because of how buyouts work. Like, and the same thing goes with like
Sure.
sports teams. Like, you kind of when you're cutting a player and they go on waivers, like it's like you're cutting your losses because you don't want to pay for this
Right.
player's salary because there's a salary cap. But when you have these teams that have so much money at their disposal, like a C9, like a TL, like a TSM, like a 100 Thieves potentially, like they can afford to hang on to these players and say like, hey, like we'll just
So
sell them once we get the offer.
So here's what I guess what I should be saying here is like it seems like, and I don't know this for a fact, so don't take this for fact, but it seems like teams like TL, for example, with we'll use the TL JENSEN contract for example. It seems like they don't have to pay him right now because he's not playing, or at least they don't have to pay the
And
full
yeah, maybe
contract at
it's some
least.
sort of reduced,
So that's what seems to be the problem is that they can hold on to these guys because they don't have to pay. But like, if if they did have to pay the full salary, then there would probably be a waiver system where they could waive a player, and that player could then be released if he's not getting paid. It seems like this might be another area where the LCSPA needs to step in and be like, these contracts are bullshit. We got too many players stuck in contract jail without teams, and these are players that obviously deserve to be on teams.
yeah, and
So
I mean the other thing to point to is like maybe the whole buyout rules need to be looked at because we heard
yeah,
earlier in the week the situation with G2 and REKKLES,
yes,
where G2 was trying to get REKKLES on a different team, doing whatever they could, and we found out that they attempted to loan REKKLES, or they attempted to loan, or was it loan him, or yeah, I think it was loan him,
yeah, at
or
a reduced rate or
yeah, at a
something.
reduced rate of his buyout, which you know if you're reckless is a good thing because it allows you to get on a starting spot on a different team. And they pretty much just got denied by the LEC because the LEC stepped in and said, hey, you can't do that because of these rules. And that rule seems to be a little bit counterintuitive where, hey, this org is trying to work with this player to get them on a different team, but the rules say you can't do that. So maybe like that's a rule that kind of needs to be looked at. It does feel though like within esports and League of Legends specifically, free agency and contract stuff is very hard to look at from the outside in because we don't
Yeah,
have all of this information. We
right.
don't know what the contracts look like. We don't know what the prices are. but it's it's a lot of money, and when there's a lot of money being thrown around, it's hard for some of these weaker or mid-tier teams to keep up.
Yeah, and I don't want to come off as knowing like this is what they need to do and they need to fix this and they need to fix that. Because I will have to admit there's a lot of ignorance from me here because I don't know how all of this works. But what I do know is something's broken here. Something ain't working, right? When you have this many star players not on teams, you know something's wrong here and that something needs to be done to fix it. And clearly the leagues are looking into this stuff because as well there was the perks thing. This real quick I need to talk about the perks thing where like he didn't sign the part. Jacob Wolf came out and
Oh
said
yeah, yeah.
that Perks didn't sign the part of the contract that said that Cloud9 couldn't send him to Fnatic, but Cloud9 and G2 signed a thing saying that Cloud9 couldn't trade him to Fnatic. That to me is so whack that like something like that could exist without Perks even knowing about it. Now maybe he did know about it, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But I think that something that feels slimy, does it not?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've heard in the past quite a lot of stuff from like the C9 camp where they're trying to skirt
Yes.
the rules a little bit, and yeah,
Yes.
well, I mean, this instance they went a little bit too far, but
Well, I would say they went too far both times. They should have known last time that you couldn't give players equity, and they did it anyways. So Jack could be like, "Oh, I didn't know." I bet you he knew, man. I bet you he knew. But anyways,
hey, if you ain't
that's
cheating, you ain't
something we don't know
trying.
for
That's the saying.
Yeah, yeah. JNT knows how much I fucking hate cheating,
I know.
man.
Yeah.
He's gonna get me on a rant here about this cheating. I'm so sick of everyone cheating and thinking that like it's normal to try to cheat. I'm so done with it. Anyways, JNT's tilting me. Well, you win this one,
All right.
JNT. You win this round. Okay,
I've
let's get
just
on to the quick
now,
news, and then we got to get on to the arcane stuff. So let's get
yeah,
going.
I've just realized I've had this graphic on the screen for way too long. Let me take that away.
Whatever.
Quick news. Only 3 things because a lot of the stuff is free agency stuff. First up, Niles. He retired because he got engaged, presumably. Or
I'll
he,
let you say anything if you have something on it first.
if you don't got nothing, or what is it thing? If you don't got anything, wait, what's this? Oh my God,
Anything good to say, don't say it. If
Or
you
if you
don't
don't
have
got
anything
anything
good to
bad to
say.
say, don't say it. Like, or if you only got something bad to say, don't say it. What the fuck is this saying? I can't remember it. Let's move on.
You are struggling. It is if you don't have anything
Niles.
good to say, don't say it at all. There's something along those lines anyway.
Hey, what's in the past is in
Say
the
it. Just
past.
say it.
Oh,
Just say it. You could say it.
okay. Niles had the worst LCS career of all time. Like,
That's what I was waiting for you to say. And not because I want to dogpile on Niles, but because I think you might be right, JNT.
dude, he
The
joined the
the thing
league.
is,
He joined the
yeah.
league, had the most deaths of like all time, basically. Then publicly went out on Twitter to defend
Ugh.
himself, saying that he like don't like the stats don't tell the whole story when you were playing like dog shit. You're the worst player in the league. And then during the off season in spring to summer, publicly flamed Golden Guardian, saying like, meh, 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 don't join a team because your roster spot's not guaranteed. And it's like, bro, if you play like that and then like flame the org publicly on Twitter, like, oh my god, cringe. I was even just baffled at the fact that Golden Guardians gave him the nice send off, the wonderful tweet about like, oh, we're so glad for
I'm
you. It's just
not.
like fuck you.
So, okay. So I think you're right. I think that is probably the worst career. Maybe someone could help us out if we're forgetting like an absolutely
Nah.
worse and disastrous career. But he played one split. It was really, really short, and it was really, really bad.
The
Um,
only other one
the
that I
thing
could
is,
think of is Piglet.
but still, Piglet had some good though,
I
didn't
know
he?
he did, but like just
Like
relative to what was
any
expected.
player that had some good in this league automatically has a better career
I mean,
than
that's true.
Niles, I would
It's been
say.
all bad.
But where I think I differ from you is like I think Golden Guardians did the right thing in letting
Oh,
him
they
retire.
did. Like the
You have
public
to
image and that.
remember, and we all have to remember, you, me, our listeners, everyone in the community has to remember he's still just a young kid. He doesn't really know what he's doing. Like I'm sure he probably, well, I don't know. I was gonna say he probably
He's like
regretted making
23 or
that tweet.
something, dog. Like he's older than a lot of the people in LCS.
What did you say? I
He's
didn't. You
he's
cut out.
he's 23. He's older than like a lot of
Oh,
people in
I
LCS.
mean, I don't know. To me, 23 is not that old. I know
Well,
you're like 24 or
I
some
mean
shit, but
relative. I'm 22, dog.
whatever.
You're fucking old.
Aren't you turning? Isn't your birthday soon?
I'm still 22.
When's your birthday?
It's in 11 days or 12
Happy
days, I
birthday.
guess. Hey,
Okay. Anyways,
Give
to
me a
me,
skin,
like
bruv.
I think if I were in the league right now, I would still make really stupid decisions. And so rewind 5 years. I'm 28 now. Rewind 5 years. I would make more dumb decisions. Being in the league, being fresh, and just yeah, I'm very forgiving to new players that are in a new environment. And I obviously you're gonna make stupid mistakes. I think he made them, and that's that. So what disappoints me about the Niles thing is that like I feel like he could still have a redemption arc here. Like we said many times, he shouldn't have been promoted that quickly to the LCS, and it's like I feel like he was done dirty in a way. It's hard to say that he was done dirty when you get promoted to the LCS, but like he was put in a situation where he was not ready for it yet, and then got absolutely dumped on. That's the end of his career. Um, of course, he could always unretire and he change his mind, blah blah blah. But as of right now, he had the worst career probably ever in the LCS, and for the time being, it looks like it's going to stay that way.
Yeah. So much for the quick news.
I know.
XD. Yeah. Next up, the EDG team owner is apparently gonna give a house to each of the EDG players who won Worlds. That's cool.
I don't have a long take on this. I just think that's awesome. Cool. They got you like they won worlds. You deserve a house.
You better get him a
Pause.
nice house, not just a shack or something.
Yeah.
Next
What
up,
else?
this is kind of a weird one because this happened pretty much almost a week ago. But Riot's making a new game. Oh wow, Pogger's epic. It's called Hextech Mayhem, and it's like a rhythm game.
Yeah.
I like
So I
rhythm
didn't complete.
games. I'm a big fan of rhythm games. I play a lot of A Dance of Fire and Ice. It's a really good game on Steam. Go check it out. Go buy it. It's a fun
Oh,
game.
here we go. He saw Faker play it one time and then thought I'm
Yeah.
gonna be Faker.
Yeah, it's a sick game, dude. It's like cheap and it's fun. But this game just looks weird. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like a Riot game. I saw this shit and I was like, is this what Riot Forge has been doing? Like, is that because it is a Riot
Yeah, it
Forge game,
is.
but it's like,
It is.
is this the kind of game that I thought they were making like some really cool like 2D platformer type games, not just like this. I mean, I don't know.
So here's what I'll say. I thought this game did look a little weird. I was like, this doesn't really look like anything that crazy. But I am too embarrassed to admit to what I actually thought it was. I'm not gonna say it. I won't.
Wait,
So
why?
at
Wait,
first,
what was it? I don't
no,
know.
I can't. I can't, dude. I
No, just say
can't.
it. Just say it. Come on,
No.
dude. Just say it. Come on. Come on.
Only.
Come
I'm only gonna
on.
say it because I know that people listening are like, "Ah, damn, he's gonna bring it up and not say it, and I shouldn't have brought it up." You know those games, like shit. You know those games where like you shoot the cat out of the cannon, and like the kitty cannon game or whatever. Do you know what
Okay.
I'm talking about? That's
Not
what I thought
really.
it was. You don't know that? It's like
No.
the cat keeps going further, and people can Google the game. It's like I thought you would know the game, but you see how far you can shoot the cat out of the cannon, and it like keeps
Oh, okay.
bouncing
Like,
on stuff.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
That's that's what I thought it was, and so I was like, "That's weird." That Riot, that Riot would come out with something like that. I was like, "That's really weird." And then I found out later, oh, it's a rhythm game.
Yeah.
Oh,
And same like same goes for me. Like I didn't know what the hell I was looking at until they said in the video like
yeah.
it's a rhythm game. It's like, oh, okay, that was weird.
Yeah, so I should be clear that that was before, like, I saw like a 2 second clip of it, and that's why I thought that. I didn't watch the whole video and then go, oh, the kitty cannon thing. That's not what happened. I just watched 2 seconds of it and I saw, like, yeah, it bouncing on stuff kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's why I thought that. But, anyways, once I realized that it was a rhythm game, I was like, oh, that's embarrassing that I thought it was this stupid cat thing.
Okay.
Let's
Arcane Act
talk about
2.
Arcane.
Warning, spoilers ahead.
Yes, this is the part of the show where we will talk about spoilers, and so you have been warned.
Yep.
So,
I don't want to
warning,
see any comments about anything.
and we've given like 5-10 seconds now of saying warning and spoiler and stuff. People have had time to pause, so let's get into it. Act 1 or Act 2, J&T? Which one did you like more?
It's hard because I would say that I thought that there was more meat in Act 1, but I think that's like
Mm-hmm.
also because like they had to do a lot in terms of setting up the story. But dude, like the whole like what went on in Act 2 was super interesting, but like I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess I have to say Act 2 because I thought it was more interesting, even though I thought Act 1 had more going on. But I liked Act 2.
That's
It
a
was
very
good.
good way of putting it. So I've heard pretty much everyone that I've heard talk about it. I think most people have said they liked Act One more, but I'm kind of with you. Like I really liked both of them. Even though I would agree with you that it seemed like Act One more things happened. It does seem like they have such a small window to fit
Yeah,
so
like
much into it, though. Like
when
we
I
only got 3 episodes left. How are they going to fix this? I don't know.
yeah, I know. Like it's I was like thinking coming into this, like, wow, we're gonna get a lot of stuff that's gonna happen in this one season, but now it just feels like this is gonna be like a 3 or 4 season type thing. Which
What I want
one
them to
is
do, yeah, that's
exciting,
fine though.
but two is disappointing because it kind of means this is like a 5, 6 year kind of project. Like
Well,
I need
so
some resolution now.
what I wish they would do, and I'm not expecting this to happen at all, but I wish they would be like, surprise, our last like episode dump is actually 6 episodes. And I'd
I
be
mean,
like,
that would be
yeah,
good. That would be
that would
good.
be pug. But I don't think they're good. I mean, that would be sweet though. Uh, what about the idea though, JNT, that like this is the end of the Arcane story, and then season 2 is not even this, but like it's like Noxus and Demacia or whatever, and excuse me, any of the other stories, like to, and then eventually you have like a final season, whether it's like 7 or 8, that brings all of these different stories from all of these different cities and towns and stuff together. What about that?
That would be cool. However, I do think that I would be more a fan of like them following this one specific branch and then within each season branching off to like, oh, this season like they're doing stuff in Nox like in was it called Noxia or
Yeah,
just Noxus? And then oh,
Noxus.
in this season they're at like whatever what the fuck's the desert called? Like with Nasus and Skarner and Renekton and that
Sharima.
like yeah, they're in Shurima. And then like yeah, I would kind of be more of a fan of like follow one central storyline and then branch off into all the different worlds within that specific season.
I think the idea of that I was just saying about doing, this is the Arcane story that's got Jinx and Vi and Jason, Victor, blah blah blah, and then doing a whole separate story in Shurima, for example. I think I would be down for that. But the reason why I don't think I want them to do it is because it doesn't seem like we got enough out of Jinx, Five,
Yeah,
Victor,
no, I
Jason, all
agree.
that.
Like,
Like that's the only issue that I have. If they did like 2 seasons of this and then 2 seasons of something else, I'd be okay with that. But I'm not like 3 episodes. That's it. I'm not ready to be done with Jinx and
mhm.
Vi and Heimerdinger and Victor. Like the story's getting good, man. Like this stuff is freaking awesome. Um, I want to ask you though, out of Act Two, has your opinion changed on your favorite character?
No, I think I'm still sticking with Jace.
Hmm.
Everyone's all mad at Jace because he kicked
Yeah.
out Heimer, and he. I mean, I'm not a
I'm mad
lore
at Jace.
guy. I'm not a lore guy, but apparently he's supposed to like be teaming up with Victor, but then he was fucking the councilwoman.
Yeah,
So,
so I'm not mad at Victor, or excuse me, I'm not mad at Jace. Like, "Ugh, I'm angry. I hate that they went the story this way," but I'm mad at him because I like Heimerdinger.
yeah.
So it's not like I hold a grudge, but it's like, oh, poor Heimer.
I'm always interested in like the characters that are on the good side of things, but have like that evil, twisted, villainous aspect of them. I'm gonna go on a
Like the
random,
perfect good guy, you're saying?
yeah, I'm gonna go on a random tangent here, just because I think this is an analogy that I think fits very well.
Okay, feed me.
I recently within the last couple months started watching Lost, and my
Oh
favorite,
God,
I
you
don't know if you've
lost
seen
me.
that. Okay, sick. Okay, but my favorite character in that show is Sawyer, who's like he's in the good guy group, but he's the evil guy. And I like that. Like I think that's a really cool character and I like how that dynamic plays out within the group of good people. And I think Jace is like that guy. Like he was he was built up as this like he's the future of built over, like he's the golden boy. And then when he got that glimpse of power, when he was able to join the council, when he like had control of like um the speech at the beginning of the act where he was going to reveal like the Hextech gemstone and they were going to go like all bestium chloride mode with like weapons, devices, improving quality of life, and then like he took control and obviously has made some mistakes along the way with kicking Heimer off the council, which he at the time thought was a good idea, but like evidently like it's going to shit, and he's probably going to face some of the consequences of his action in Act 3. But I think that shit's really interesting.
Yeah, so I haven't ever seen the show Lost. So when I said you lost me, that was pun intended, but you actually like I don't, yeah, sure. But I get where you're coming from, that like you don't want the good guys to be perfect. Like sometimes that's
Yeah.
just no fun, Like everyone's flawed, so why can't good guys be flawed as well? For me, my favorite character is actually Jinx now. Um don't get me wrong, Heimerdinger can easily redeem himself in the next act because I'm still a big time Heimer fan. But I think like the crazy jinx that we're starting to see, it's a little bit scary, and I
Well,
like it.
that's not the
I think it's
crazy jinx. That's just jinx.
well, sure, sure. Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is in Act One, Powder was not the crazy jinx that we know now. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, powder is
Um,
powder and jinx is jinx.
yes, yes, they are definitely different characters, and I guess even though I like Powder was the heartstrings, you know, they pulled on the heartstrings with Powder in Act One. I like the change to Jinx. Like I like that crazy kind of character. Actually, last week I mentioned how I really like the Joker. The bad guys are always the ones that are really interesting to me. Well, Jinx is like this kind of pseudo bad guy because she's obviously doing bad shit. She's killing people and stuff like that, and just the craziness is really like wacky. Like I love that scene where Silco says, "Do you know what you've done? You killed 6 people." And she goes, "Yeah." Like that to me is like I like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I really liked about Act 2, and I still have not put my finger on whether I like Act 1 or Act 2 more because I think they're both great.
Mhm.
Um
I
but
definitely like the like the Jinx like kind of talking to herself in her head when she
yeah.
had finally saw Vi and then Caitlyn pops out and she's like, "You're with them." It's like, oh shit. Like then she's having this like the conversations with the voices in her head. I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's still some things that disappointed me though. Obviously things that, and I kind of have an impressed list and a disappointed list. So let's just get into that stuff. Some of the stuff that, even though I said I loved Act Two, there were some things that, I guess some like logical things that stood out. So one of them is like when Jace and Victor do their little presentation to Heimer, like they're like, "Look, we discovered this," and he shows them all the weapons, and then Heimer's just like, "Oh, cool. Well, in 10 years you could show it to people." Like if it's like supposed to be as groundbreaking as it's supposed to be, I thought Heimer would be a little bit more excited, but he was just like, "Yeah, you'll work out the kinks over the next decade or so, and then you will be able to present it." And I was like, even if you thought that that was right to wait 10 years to work out the kinks and whatnot, shouldn't you still be hella like gung ho, like this is freaking awesome? He didn't seem all that.
Well, I don't
I
know.
guess he's 300 years old. He's seen some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the point of that is like Heimer is like a very wise and old guy who's seen a lot of stuff in the past, specifically with the Rune Wars, and he can
Hmm.
understand when technology and innovation like this, kind of gets expedited and is introduced too quickly. He's seen what happens when that is, and I also
So
think, well, let
let
me
me
finish.
clarify though. Let me clarify because
Okay.
I still think like I don't think it's wrong to be like, oh, you should wait to tinker around with this stuff and make sure that's not what I'm saying. I don't think it's wrong to do that. But I thought he would still be more excited about it, is what I expected.
Yeah.
Because
But
he didn't seem all that impressed.
yeah, I
I was
guess
like, oh.
I guess that is kind of true. But the other thing that I was gonna say is I also think it kind of shows like the dynamic of like Heimer, this old experienced wise guy, versus like Jason Victor, who are these two like young guns who are like they're very much
Mhm.
in the now in terms of like innovating and trying to progress as far as they possibly can. And it kind of just shows the balance of there's these young guys who are trying to create stuff and just get it into the world as soon as possible, compared to Heimer, who clearly is this like experienced, more methodical type guy.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the other things that disappointed me a little bit was like when they have the council meeting and Jace is like, "It was my responsibility that we lost the hex core," and blah blah blah. And then he's like, but also who's in favor of voting out Heimerdinger?" I was like, wait a second here. You were just talking about how it was your responsibility for the hex core. And I still get why they voted out Heimerdinger because he's like, everyone, all the people are like, we need to move things along here. We
Yeah,
don't
and
all
he's
live to be
wheeling and
300
dealing on the
years old,
side in the
like
music theater.
yeah, so that is like a little bit like, huh? Like Jace is like, this is my responsibility, but also let's vote on Heimerdinger, and everyone's like, yep, because they talked with Jace at that theater thing, and I was like, wow, that's that simple. He just got all of them on his side just like that, and they just voted out Heimerdinger just like that. That was like, I don't know if I buy that. Um, I do see the reasonings. I guess I don't necessarily think that that's enough to warrant the vote out. I suppose, but anyway. Want to talk about stuff that you did like?
Yeah, I thought Caitlyn was a really good character. I thought
Yes, me too.
she was going to be a pretty inconsequential person in the whole storyline based off of Act 1. And I know in the teaser for Act 2, it was like her that kind of came up to Vi in the prison and showed her those pictures
Yeah.
of the Jinx imagery and drawings and whatnot at crime scenes. But I thought her character was great.
Yeah, me too.
It always feels like when you do have that character who kind of like is like in some sort of law enforcement and then kind of like deviates from the norm, they kind of end up being like this idiotic type. They're either the hero or this like very idiotic character who just does a bunch of stupid stuff that screws up everything else. And I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be the fucking dumb bitch who just starts messing up stuff. But then she was like kind of beasting out. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I said this last episode, and I think it was very true. I enjoy the finesse side with Caitlyn, with the sniping,
Oh yeah,
and the
yeah,
brute with
it's cool.
Vi. I like that dynamic. I
Me
think
too.
that's really good. And the other thing that I really liked is they gave like a sneak preview to when we were talking about the presentation that Victor and Jace gave to Heimer of the weapons working with like the claw and like the gauntlet glove that we think is, well, we know is going to be Vi's eventually.
Well,
Big
we
time
know
spoiler there.
the claw was Victor's laser.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like that is like, oh shit, we're starting to see like the in-game abilities from League of
Mhm.
Legends. So that I really liked. I can't wait to see more of that in Act 3, which we're definitely getting some. And then some little Easter eggs I really liked. That was another thing that was my pop off, if you will, because we didn't do pop off bean soup this week. I gave that my little pop off where like you have Jinx playing the Get Jinxed music. Like I was like, oh, I like that. Even though that
Mm.
breaks the fourth wall kind of thing. I was like, who cares? Everyone loves that song. It's so good. It's just it is very Jinx, obviously, so I like that. Then there's Vi calling Caitlyn a cupcake, and I was like,
Yeah, that was
because
funny.
the
Yeah, yeah.
trap, like she puts the cupcake. What else? Um, there was other ones. There was like I thought we saw Beatrice. So I was watching this with Andrew,
Who's Beatrice?
and we see Beatrice, like the raven, the bird, show up, like
Oh,
Swain's
oh, yes,
bird.
yes,
I
yes.
thought it was Beatrice, and then Jinx just shoots the bird. I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't Beatrice. Then it just shoots. But then we do see another raven later. Still don't know if it's Beatrice, but it could be. And then the other thing that I really like is the Poro. I like the little
Yeah, that
Poro. The
was
Poro's
cute.
cute.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just those little things I really like.
Mhm.
Lots of cool stuff there. Oh, one last Easter egg. Um, when Jinx is doing like the boxing machine that Vi normally does, she gets like the second high score. I noticed that her high score said "Pow" and not Jinx.
I did
So it
see
made me
that as well.
wonder. I wonder if Jinx thinks of herself still as Powder, or if like I don't know if the machine does it itself, or I don't know how that works. But I was like, oh, maybe that means Jinx still sees herself as Powder, even
There's
though she
still
keeps
some good
saying,
in her.
even though she keeps saying no, it's Jinx now. It's like, is it though? Is it? Maybe. We'll see.
I didn't think about it like that. I was kind of on the same. I was on the side which you kind of alluded to, like, oh, it just recognized that it was this person. But maybe that is like a bit of like, oh, there
Yeah,
might be
you
some good
wonder,
in her.
right? If in her mind she's still like, no, I'm still Powder. I'm putting on this mask, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, anyways, yeah. So I really like that too, and I was like, that's a cool little Easter egg there that it said "Pow" on the score instead of Jinx. Uh, okay. I wanted to ask your opinion on the Imagine Dragons thing. A lot of people didn't really like it. A lot of people really liked it. Me, I didn't really care. I was like, whatever. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't care. The one thing that I watched Travis and Mark Z's review on Arcane that they came out after Act 1. And the one
Okay.
negative that Mark really discussed and said, like, this is the only thing that I really didn't like about Arcane, and I actually agree with him after thinking about it and after watching Act 2 specifically, is the music just feels kind of off. Like the music
Really?
that they use is very like new age, heavy vocal type stuff that is very like 2021, and I don't think it like really takes away any of the value of Arcane, but I just think that the music could be better. Um,
I like the music, honestly. So that surprises me that
well,
you
I
and Mark are both said that, because one of the things when watching it, I kept thinking like, I love the music in this show. So that's interesting that
Well,
we have different
I
opinions
mean,
there.
it's more the music when they have the vocals and whatnot in that. Like, I really like. Mark also said this. The intro song is fantastic. I love that as well. And even when the Imagine Dragons thing came on, like, I really like the intro song, so I didn't mind that at all. Like, I thought it was good, but it just feels like the other music is like a little bit out of place. But it doesn't.
The one
For me, it doesn't detract the value at all. Like, this show is great.
So a lot of people didn't like the Imagine Dragons thing because they say it broke the fourth wall, and like the Jinx thing obviously did that too, but like that didn't bother me. I didn't think it bothered me with the Imagine Dragons one either, because yes, it does break the fourth wall, so to speak, but like immediately a fight scene happens right after, and Vi like knees whatever that woman's face, whatever her name is,
Yeah,
she just
yeah.
knees her in the face, and so
I forget
like
her name, but yeah.
yeah, even though like it broke the fourth wall, it immediately brought me like back into the show with like that fight scene just breaking out. So it didn't bother me
Is her name
whatsoever. I
Shauna or
think because of that.
something?
Pardon me?
Is her name Shauna or something? Maybe I'm totally wrong about
No,
this, but
it's not Shauna. Ah, God, I know her name, but I'm blanking on
she's
it.
just
But
a
anyway,
mechanical arm chick
yeah, yeah.
with the purple juice.
Um, is there anything else? Okay, yeah, a couple of things still. So, I wanted to ask if it bothered you at all about how episode 6 ended, very similar to how episode 3 ended, whereas like Vi just gets kidnapped again, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what happened at the end of episode 3. Do you think that is a like, damn, they came up with the same thing twice, or do you think they're like that's like one of the stories they're trying to hit hard, that like no matter how much Vi tries to get back with Jinx, something keeps pulling them apart? Do you think like that's a good representation of one of their struggles, or do you think it's like this is just unoriginal?
I didn't like I hadn't even thought about that at all until you mentioned it, so I don't think I can really say that it bothered me. I mean, I
Oh,
don't think it was I wasn't like, "Oh my God, fantastic cliffhanger. I can't wait to watch more," because I mean, yeah, I mean, I just because the show is so good, I just want to watch more, but I just hadn't
yeah.
really thought of it, so I can't really say that it bothered me.
Yeah, and I keep wondering this, if like I'm missing a lot of things that I would normally not like in a show because I'm in just such awe, because like I've been waiting for like good league lore for God knows how long, other than like to me it's a little interesting to go and just read up on some of their bios online, but like to see actually like a full out story that's got like good, well in my opinion good music, good like really nice animation and all that stuff. Maybe I'm just in such awe that I'm like missing some of the bad stuff. I don't know. um, but yeah, I didn't, that didn't really bother me either. I was more on the side of the like, yes, both episode 3 and 6 end in a similar way, but to me that I was like, that's just one of their struggles, is that they're trying to get back together and something just keeps getting in their way. So I don't mind that, that it was kind of ending the same. What I will say though is last episode of our podcast, I said that like that Marcus cop could have a redemption arc because it looked like he was maybe trying to save Vi from Silco, and we learned that that was not the case at all. Because Silco, when he's playing with Marcus's like little girl, when they're playing with the blocks or whatever, he basically said, "Your dad assured me that Vi was gone with Vander," basically saying that like she's Gonzo, and well, that clearly was his intention and not just to save her.
Yeah,
So we learned what his true intentions are, and he's quite corrupt by the looks of things.
he's gonna die. That's just a character who dies. Like
Okay, you heard it here first.
he
JNT
dead.
thinks Marcus is dying. Maybe he could. Yeah, I could see it. Um, I want to talk about any speculation or predictions you may have, JNT. Was there anything of that sort
Yeah,
that stood out to you?
there was one like I didn't watch Arcane. Like it came out at like midnight on the West Coast on
Hmm.
Friday, like basically right as Friday was turning into Saturday, and I didn't like stay up that night and watch it. I waited until Saturday night to watch it, so I was actively avoiding like Twitter and Reddit to read anything about Arcane because I didn't want any spoilers. And after watching it, I was like, I was like, where's Echo? Like, wasn't that guy supposed to kind of come back potentially? And then I was like, kind of racking my brain about it, like, maybe he's like that Firelight guy, like the leader of the
Well,
Firelights. And
so
then I read a bunch of spoilers and stuff, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it's so obvious that Echo is like the leader of the Firelights." I was like, "Oh man, like dang."
yeah, by the sounds of things. Well, the only thing for me, so I heard that spoiler as well, which to me is fine.
It's
The
a
only thing
spoiler.
is,
It's not just speculation.
it sounds like people are pretty certain that Echo's the leader of the Firelights.
Hmm.
Um, the one thing that I will say is I want an explanation as to why he's fighting Vi and Jinx without saying anything, because he should know them based
Yeah,
off Act One. Like he should know who these people are. Like you wouldn't just fight them and not say anything. There has to be something that happened in that, like, I don't know if it's a 2 year window, a 5 year window, a 10 year window, whatever it is, but we know that there's a window because Jinx was a little girl and now she's like more grown up. We
it's
know
got to
that
be like
time has
10 years or
passed.
something.
Yeah, we don't know what the time is, but we know time has passed, and so something would have happened where Echo suddenly wouldn't want to be like, "Hey, Vi and Jinx, let's not fight each other because we're on the same side." Something changed, and we'll have to.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, we get to find out what that is.
Yeah, and then speaking of the Firelights, like one of the same posts I was reading about that was like someone else was kind of speculating that The Hextech lab assistant, like one of the assistants to Jace and Victor, is also one of the members of the Firelights, and it was kind of like a pretty weak like
Hmm.
speculation, but he was just saying how like the characters look in their hair and stuff like that, and like the one of the Firelights was wearing a mask and had similar hair, so I was like, that might be interesting if like she's kind of playing both sides or something, but
So
maybe she's just like a super irrelevant character and that character has nothing to do with anything, but I was like, oh, maybe that's interesting.
I I'm actually so never mind. I hate to do this, but I'm actually not going to talk about this one spoiler because to me, I heard this one spoiler that I thought like, oh,
Well,
I
I
wish
want
I
to know what
wouldn't
it
have found that
is.
one out. I'll tell you maybe off stream. I don't want to ruin it for people.
Okay.
We'll
Is
talk
it
about it
actually a
next.
spoiler or is it just like a?
I think it is. I think
Okay,
it
don't tell me
is.
then.
Yeah, I don't think it's good to share actually. So I'm sorry because I was gonna bring it up
You've been
and I'm sorry to
baited.
do that, guys. But I don't want to do that because I heard this spoiler and I was like, damn, I think that would have been pretty cool if I found that out on my own. So I'm not gonna do that. What else? Okay, last thing. This is a totally like weird thing, but I think there's a potential here for a little another Easter egg. But when I heard Jinx talking to Silco about the doctor or whatever in relation to Singed, I believe she's
Yeah, no,
talking
he
about
got a little
Singed.
cameo at the end. Singe did.
Huh? Yeah,
Singe
yeah.
got like the little.
But but the Easter egg that I'm looking for is in League of Legends. One of Jinx's lines is, "I'm crazy. I've got a doctor's note." I hope she gets a doctor's note from Singed. I think that would be really cute if like Singed actually somehow gave her a doctor's note saying you're crazy.
Top
Um,
tier flavor right there.
if she starts to get like too crazy and Silco's like, I don't know what to do, and he's like, I'm gonna maybe Singed knows what to do with her, and he just like she's crazy and gives her a doctor's note. I think that would be really funny. And a nice little Easter egg there, but I'm not counting on it though because I think it would be a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Well, maybe it does. I don't know. But that's all I got on the show. I guess the short of it is I love it still. Can't wait for the next 3 episodes, and we'll probably talk more about them next week. Do you have anything to add on it, JNT?
I'm just hoping that there's not going to be like some absurdly long break between season 1 and season 2, whatever season 2 may be, whether it's the same
Yeah,
story, whether it's a different story, because I do know that like a lot of these anime projects, when they are working season by season, there can be quite a big gap in between. But considering Riot said they've been working on the show for the better part of like 7, 8 years, I would hope that stuff is a little bit further into the works so that we won't be waiting a year to 2 years plus.
I
But
hope so too.
a
I
man
hope
can
so
hope.
too. Yeah. Oh, one last thing I forgot to add. Sorry. At the end in that one fight scene at the end of episode 6, there's one guy with like claws and stuff like that. It looks pretty Warwicky. Not gonna lie. I don't know if that's Warwick or not, but it definitely had claws. I went
Well,
back to look
Warwick's a
at it and I was
dog.
like,
He's not a
that looks like
guy.
claws. Huh?
Warwick's a dog. He's not a guy.
Well, he's a human that like ends up being like
Is that what the lore is?
experimented on. I'm pretty sure Singed does a bunch of shit to what I thought was a person.
Oh, it's not a. He doesn't experiment on
Singed
the
makes
dog.
Warwick. I don't think so.
I thought he starts out as a dog and just turns into.
Well, I
Uh.
mean, he's a werewolf. The story
Oh,
about
is that what it
werewolves is
is?
that they turn in. Well, I thought he was.
I thought he
I,
was just a little dog or something.
ladies and gentlemen, this is what you get when you have two idiots that don't know the lore very much, and we just get so much thrown at us,
This
and we
is,
don't really know
dude.
what to do with it.
I'm seeing this as a benefit because like I'm just getting hit with
Oh, me
stuff for the
too.
first time. It's
Me too.
cool.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm glad to be the idiot here, but I mean, this is what happens when you like we don't know the lore very well. We're just like
Yeah.
thrown all this awesome content, and we just I don't know. I'm too excited that I need to talk about it. But yeah, don't assume we're experts on this. We're just giving our reactions because it's a fun show. It's fun.
Mhm.
But anyways, it's gone on for long enough. It's
Yeah.
been quite the long episode, I think.
Yeah, and
Anyways,
in classic
um,
fashion, we're about at the
yeah,
2 hour mark.
yeah.
We
We're trying to make these episodes shorter, guys. We're just not very good at doing
it's
it.
the funny thing is I feel like once we started actively saying like, hey, we should try to shorten our episodes, like they've just become
They
longer.
got longer
Like
and longer.
like we started
Yeah.
out around like the hour 15 to hour and a half mark, and we've just been on the up and up.
Okay, I'm gonna let people know that our next episode, we actually don't know when it's gonna be. We're gonna plan for next week at the normal time after Hotline League. But if there's not a lot of free agency stuff that is like wrapped up and there's still too much unknown, there's a chance we wait for another week.
Well, maybe
But what
well,
we're fairly certain of is that next episode is going to be our last episode of the year, right? Is that safe to say, JNT?
well, I was gonna say I think we should just do it next week, same time, regardless, just because of Arcane. But
Yeah. We'll have to think about it. J&T and I will talk about it, but if it is delayed, we'll tweet and let you guys know. But again, thanks guys for keep coming back. We love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not on YouTube. It is free. And for those that are unaware, we do this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So you can find us on any Anchor supported platforms.
All
Um,
of them.
yeah, we'll hopefully see you guys next week. And one last thing is we still need feedback from you guys. I don't care if you DM me in Discord, if you join the Discord and say it in there or whatever. We need some feedback because we don't really get a lot of feedback anymore, honestly. As long
Yeah.
as you guys are cool about it, we will take that feedback and we'll try to run with it and learn a thing or two. But that's going to be it for this episode. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next week, hopefully. This has been episode 66 of the Clown Fiesta podcast. Take care of yourselves.
Bye bye.